I'm calling to order the Housing Authority of the City of Salem for Tuesday, May 26, 2026. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Tigan.
Present.
Commissioner Matthews.
Here.
Vice Chair Gwynn.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Vang.
Here.
Commissioner Nordyke.
Here.
Commissioner Varney.
Here.
Chair Nishioka.
I'm here. Thank you. Will everyone rise for the Pledge of the Allegiance? All right. Good evening, everyone. Vice Chair, do we have any additions or deletions?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment? We don't have any sheets up here.
Dan has them. Right here.
No.
Oh, so there's no public comment.
All I have is the electronic sheets and everyone signed up.
So we don't seem to have the...
Here we go. Okay.
Oh, never mind. He found the...
Nope.
Nope.
We're
No.
good.
No comments no public comments. Great, thank you. We don't have any public comments for the Housing Authority. So Vice Chair, do you have a motion for the consent calendar?
I move
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Gwynn and seconded by Commissioner Matthews. Does anyone have any questions? Will the recorder? Oh, to your motion. Yay, I got it right today.
Our consent calendar this evening consists of item 3.1A, which is our May 11, 2026 draft Salem Housing Authority minutes, and item 3.3A, which is to adopt resolution number 2324 authorizing the Salem Housing Authority to submit a Section 18 disposition application to HUD to dispose of a vacant parcel located in the mapped floodway area associated with Glen Creek Village Apartments, and authorize the Director of Housing to execute all related certifications. And that is all for our consent calendar.
Thank you, and I'm glad I got it correct today. All right, does anyone have any questions? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Matthews.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gwynn.
Aye.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Vang.
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke.
Aye.
Commissioner Varney.
Aye.
Commissioner Tigan.
Aye.
Chair Nishioka.
Aye. The motion passes. We're now to public hearings, and I see Jessica likely stepping forward. And so we let the presentation go first. Great.
Before we start, I have a script. The Salem Housing Authority Commission will now conduct a public hearing to consider the adoption of resolution number 2323, approving the Salem Housing Authority Annual Public Housing Agencies Plan, Capital Fund Plan, and moving to work supplement to the PHA Plan. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation followed by other interested persons. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Jessica Blakely. I'm the Deputy Director for the Salem Housing Authority, and I'm here to share with you the annual PHA Plan, Capital Fund Plan, and the Moving to Work Supplement. How do you advance the slide? Aha. Okay, thank you. Tonight I'll highlight the new activities as nothing has really changed from this year's plan from last. As I brought this to you guys last year, we talked about the demolition and disposition activities that the Housing Authority will be working on in the upcoming year. One of them that was just approved was the Glen Creek Floodway parcel disposition. That's a part of a larger plan to demolish the existing aging public housing units and to rebuild new units on the same site at a later date. The other activity that we'll be taking on and I'll be bringing back to the June commission meeting is the scattered home disposition. We're kind of working out right now. HUD, we had a meeting with HUD after we approved last year's plan, and they wanted us to change some of the verbiage in the actual way we had listed out the scattered home disposition. So instead of actually putting the entire 79 homes up at once in one application, they said they would rather us only submit an application each year for the homes in which we chose to dispose of in that year. So we'll be bringing forth another resolution that has those homes in it next month. The third thing is that when we talked about our preferences, if you'll remember, we wanted to make the first preference of those selling of those single-family homes to not displace the tenants that were currently in there. So we wanted to specifically target the ones that could and would be able to purchase those homes individually, and HUD says we can't do that. They specified that we had to put it out as a preference for any low-income folks within the city, and so we've made that adjustment based on that information. Now the homeowners or the renters in those homes would still be eligible to apply for home ownership opportunities through Habitat and from some of our other partnerships, but we can't make that direct correlation to sell it directly to them as kind of a direct sale. And so, so we adjusted the preference language in the plan to reflect not only our anti-displacement strategies, but also to address the concerns that HUD had by targeting specific groups of low-income individuals over others. We do have one contract this year under project-based vouchers that will be coming online. We intend to sign it before the end of this year, and that's for Voyagers Village. That's been in our plan for probably 4 years now, but this is the actual year it will be realized and those vouchers applied. And that is the only changes in the Public Housing Authority plan, the PHA plan for this year. For the Public Housing Capital Fund plan, one of our targeted activities is to assist with pre-development work that's required to submit those applications that we discussed to HUD. So oftentimes they request us to gather a capital needs assessment so that we can determine the cost to redevelop the project as is versus demolishing and building new. So that helps us with our calculations to make sure that we're showing HUD it actually costs more to rebuild the existing units than to just demolish and build new to current standards. So those activities that are required to submit with that application would be one of the uses of the capital fund plan. In addition, operational funding is going to be shorted this year. We've received the first iteration of the House budget, and it's not good for public housing at all. So one of the plans is for us to use some of that capital fund money that we won't be putting into renovating a building that we intend to demolish. We would then take that money and we would fill it into our operating subsidy to be able to continue operating the housing until we sell it. And then the third being the moving to work flexibility. We're a moving to work agency now, so we can actually fund our federal funds if we would like to. And one of the choices is HUD has been underfunding our Housing Choice Voucher Program and administrative fees. So at 100%, they would give us just enough to operate the Housing Choice Voucher Program. The proration right now as it sits with the House iteration is 75%. So that means we would get 75% of the funding. We know we need to serve 100% of our program right now, which is not ideal. So one of the strategies is to use the capital fund plan money to also support the other side of the house. Finally, with the Moving to Work supplement, there are no changes from prior year. The Moving to Work supplement is where we can request waivers from the housing, from HUD to basically state that maybe we want to do certain things that would reduce our operational capacity. One of those in the past that was approved was basically to change our annual recertifications to biannual. So that helped basically spread the workload over 2 years, which was initially done in 1 year to help our staffing capacity. We are not choosing to add any additional waivers from the 3 that we already have approved. When we do the plan and we put it together, we do a lot of community outreach. To date, we've received no public comments. We met with our resident advisory board, and they have no objections to our plans. We published our public notice on 3/29, and it went through 5/22. And we also went and shared this information with this Kaiser City Council on May 18th and invited them here if they would like to speak on the matter. So overall, in summary, we changed our preference policy to match what HUD had requested to ensure that this year's plan will move forward and we can go ahead and start changing those scattered site homeownership opportunities into reality. We've identified 8 vacant units at this time. We'll submit with this year's applications in hopes of getting those in Habitat for Humanity's hand before the end of the year, which is our goal. The other was the project-based voucher page. We updated with correct dates, including 2026 dates for Voyager Village. And then we removed Shelton Village from our plan as it was sold in December of 2025. So that was exciting to get that disposition completed, and looking forward to the remainder of the dispositions that we have up ahead. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Teichen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Blakely, thank you, as always. I have a couple questions on the capital fund plan page, the CFP plan, if you wouldn't mind going back. So on the second bullet on operational funding, do you have a sense of what that budget shortage is currently? Do you have a sense of what it is?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking. I don't have a sense exactly of where it will land right now, but the way that HUD has proposed it, first in the presidential budget iteration and now in the House, it looks to be around 82% of what we need to actually operate this 109 units. So they would be funding us at that prorate of an already formula-based proration.
And I just don't know the budget well enough. So is that a $2 million gap? Is it a $10 million gap? Is it a $20,000 gap?
That's a great question. It's about a $200,000 gap.
Okay. And I think you answered it, Madam Chair. I think you answered it in the question there. In some of these federal agencies, they're moving forward with the president's budget as if that's what is being passed into law. But then later in the fiscal year, it turns out that isn't what's passed into law. So I'm curious, are you being asked to plan to the president's budget, or are you working under a continuing resolution of like actual dollars that have been appropriated by Congress?
These are really great questions, and I love talking about this part because this is the part I follow pretty closely.
Yeah.
So we take the presidential's recommendations and kind of just set them over on the side. Until the House comes out with their iteration, that's when we really focus in on, okay, this could be real. But we know right now that the Senate will likely have a little bit more cushion than the House budget. So I find myself going between the House budget and what I think maybe the Senate will end up on. So that cushion at 80 to 82% is actually above what it is right now being projected from the House.
Last one. So with that $200,000 gap, is there something coming out of the capital fund that wouldn't be invested, or is something coming out of the moving to work fund that won't move forward because you're making up that operational gap? Like, what's the loss to Salem?
That's a great question. So the capital fund plan is really meant to address capital needs on our buildings, on our aging infrastructure. However, with the Glen Creek project, they actually won't allow us to spend capital fund dollars because it's currently located in a floodway. So that's part of the reason why we're disposing of that floodway parcel so that we can move forward with redevelopment. As it stands today, until we actually get that HUD approval, we still cannot put any capital dollars into that building whatsoever. We can only use operational dollars. And so That's why we really focus and target, even though it says capital fund planned, by using those dollars strategically for operational spending. That's really intentional because that's all we can use it for. In addition, once we start to put in the Section 18 application for the disposition of those scattered homes, HUD then would say, why would you invest capital dollars into those when you're intending to sell them? So that's not a strategy that they want to see either. So really focusing the operational funds from the capital funds is really strategic because we're really trying to offload those units anyways, turn the scattered sites into home ownership opportunities, and then to demolish Glen Creek and rebuild it into a new building. We can use capital fund dollars to pay for pre-development costs, and then it would be able to go into the project itself once we demolish the building. So that's really the strategy with Glen Creek.
Okay, great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Matthews.
So, and I'm sure, I know we've talked about this before, and I think I'm just not remembering, but with the scattered site homeownership plan, now that we obviously can't direct those directly to our current tenants, and it has to be a little bit more broad, I don't recall, are we the lender in that scenario, or are we working with outside lenders? How are we vetting whether or not someone's qualifies for this low income aspect?
That's a great question. So we have separated it into two buckets. We have 46 homes that we think are really good home ownership opportunities for our population to thrive. So they're probably on a lot that's in a good school district, close to transit, close to shopping. So those that we've identified as moving our families that live in them now into more self-sufficiency, we want those opportunities to stay with us, and I'll explain that one in more detail. And then we have the 33 homes, which for whatever reason, we just don't find them as ideal candidates, but Habitat for Humanity is really interested in taking those over and maybe demolishing them and rebuilding them into middle housing or whatever their plan is for them. And so with those 33, we're strategically targeting those to sell them directly to Habitat for Humanity, and those will be done in a direct sell, and HUD is okay with that, so long as we sell them to folks that have 80% of the area median income or less, and that fits within Habitat's program. For the 46, we're still kind of figuring out what this looks like, but one of our ideas is that since we already have a vested interest and we can record a deed restriction, for example, we could do a silent second mortgage, which is not really a lending of money, but it's a lending of value. And if our homeowners can qualify for, say, $100,000 in a loan, we could come behind with a $450 silent second mortgage that's forgiven year over year, so that essentially they can transfer it to a family member if they wanted to, and try to make those generational wealth building opportunities within their own family structure. But let's say that doesn't work for them, and 10 years from now they decide they want to sell the home, those would get repaid to SHA dependent on the proration. So there's still opportunity for income generation for Salem Housing Authority. In addition, if something goes wrong, the asset would still have a restriction that would still have Salem Housing Authority on it. So we'd have an opportunity to repurpose it if something doesn't work just as we intended. But the idea is that we're able to help families get into home ownership opportunities and meet them where they're at right now financially, without having to ask them to go into that lending space that would be putting them over that burden threshold.
I think that makes total sense. I did have a question then about the 33 with the Habitat for Humanity piece. Are these non-financeable homes? Are they in such a shape that they wouldn't be financed through a traditional lender, that we would just go direct to consumer with these homes, to a low-income consumer? But I guess I'm trying to figure out why the middleman is there as a benefit.
No, these are all great questions. So these 33 homes, they all meet the ability to pass an Inspire inspection by HUD, or else we wouldn't be able to get funded for them. We just don't find that they're in locations that were really successful for our own clients, but Habitat has a different model. So we would sell it to them for a discount. They would be able to run it through their model and basically maybe increase the number of affordable homeownership opportunities, where we wouldn't be able to then take one site and turn it into two. We just don't have that kind of capacity. They have that internal capacity to make those changes happen right away. And they've said they could commit to taking 8 to 10 a year and getting those moving. So that's kind of the the part that we brought out last year is we brought out that full plan with the full exposure. Hey, how's this sound? And it seemed like the general consensus of the community was it was a good idea.
So has Habitat for Humanity, have they indicated what their price point will be on these homes once they're completed?
Yes. The price point. Yeah, I don't have their exact price point model, but I'm happy to send you their kind of proposal. When we submit the application, I have to submit their letter with it. I probably should have brought that, but I can circle that back with you. And it explains why the purchase price is the way that it is, because it puts it into their model for what they can do, and then the money that they'll need to invest in those to make them still affordable homeownership opportunities. So that's why we chose that sales price threshold. They built in their model with their ideas for each one of the sites, and then it will be sold to those that are 80% or below, and that meets that same, I don't know, 250-ish, 250-ish sales price that they're targeting.
Okay, so 2 to 250 is their target
That's what
sales
they're
price
kind of
once they're
targeting, yeah.
fully
Some
rehabbed.
might be a little less, some might be a little more, but
Okay, okay, excellent.
Jessica, I know that, one, I want to thank your whole department, the agency, for all the work that you're doing, trying to navigate the funding, the lack of funding, the challenges that you face. I'm curious as to, with some of this lack of funding, are you finding that, I know that your wait list gets stopped, but are you having to displace people? And if so, can you give us some numbers on if you're having to discontinue renting to some because of either lack of funding or because of the changes that have been made?
happy to answer that. The voucher numbers are going to stay the same. So really what is impacted is the amount of dollars they give us to run the programs. So we're asked to run the same amount of program with less staff, basically. And so what we really work on are opportunities, say with these scattered home dispositions, the money that we are able to generate that's diversified income that doesn't come directly from that federal formula grant, we're able to then build back into our agency budget, and that will help support those staff. So it doesn't change the amount of clients that we're serving. The only change would be is that we're not issuing new vouchers. So if somebody, maybe is terminated from the program because they maybe went over income, or maybe they no longer meet the program rules, whatever the case may be, as they go off the program, one of the things HUD is asking us not to do is lease more, right, until we can get our budget within what they're asking it to be. So that's really the only impact at this time. All of our residents that are in the scattered site homes or our public housing units, they are all still being treated under the Uniform Relocation Act. So our requirements are to basically have those anti-displacement strategies and assisting them in getting to their next space. We don't just say it's time to go, you have to go. We follow them until we find a new home for them.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Jessica? All right, thank you. All right. I guess we do have a motion. Vice Chair, we have a, no, that's okay.
There's no public.
The hearing is closed.
I move that we adopt resolution number 2323 approving the Salem Housing Authority annual PHA plan, capital fund plan, and moving to work supplement to the PHA plan.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Vice Chair Gwynn and seconded by Commissioner Tigan. Any other comments or questions? Will the recorder call the roll?
Vice Chair Gwynn.
Aye.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Vang.
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke.
Aye.
Commissioner Varney.
Aye.
Commissioner Tigan.
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews.
Aye.
Chair Nishioka.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. We're on to special orders of business. I see Ms. Hughes coming to the podium.
Good evening. I'm Nicole Utes. I'm the Director of Housing for Salem Housing Authority. And tonight I'm just going to do a quick highlight overview of the program management report that received with our agenda tonight. We always like to highlight that we have over 3,114 vouchers out there leased currently. We are working diligently to keep all of those leased and not have HUD come back and say that we need to retract any of those vouchers. That is our goal. We are doing many cost-saving measures to ensure that we stay within their allocations and their budget. And we anticipate an upcoming meeting with HUD to even show them that we're monitoring our 2-year tools and making great effort to keep within all cost-saving measures so that we do not have to retract any of our vouchers. That's our #1 goal, keep everybody leased that is currently leased. Our program operations have focused on financial sustainability due to the HUD guidance that Jessica just spoke about, so I won't go over that. We are increasing our rent reasonableness reviews. We've really been working with landlords to the point we even pushed back on one recently who came in at a max dollar of $2,499 for a apartment in West Salem. And we also indicated the amount of vacancies. For those who may not know, we're even monitoring the amount of vacancies that are occurring in Salem. So West Salem and South Salem currently have a higher than normal vacancy compared to the rest of the city. And so we're pushing back, stating that we will not go above our maximum threshold, that they needed to come down to our program requirements. And they eventually did do the amount of the vacancy rate. So we're really working with landlords to ensure that we're meeting our rent reasonableness requirements and that units aren't going up to just our max amount payment standards. This is how we can keep that funding down, not have additional cost allocations by through the shortfall process that says we need to retract vouchers. We have to be very mindful about every dollar that we're spending out there right now. Any of our incoming portability cases, we're billing an outside agency. So let's say they transferred here from Las Vegas or something, we are actually billing that agency for that voucher instead of just absorbing that voucher into our costs. And we're limiting voucher extensions beyond 120 days unless an accommodation is approved. So beyond that, whenever we have capacity, we are always trying to find the streamline and efficiency. And some of the operational improvements that we have recently implemented is expanding our DocuSign, which staff are extremely excited about the capabilities of DocuSign, and more usage for the documents coming back and forth. That's helped streamline our lease-up process and getting landlords. Landlords are very quick to get paperwork back as opposed to delivering it to our office. So we're hoping we're improving that efficiency on both ends. Increasing staff confidence in their caseload management, explaining about the moving to work and the biannual recertifications that we now can do with our moving to work waiver. And we're continuing to work on a major monumental task of file digitalization. So many of our partners and our auditors and different functions have gone completely to a digital base of requesting to do audits and reviews. We have been paper for many years, having auditors come and invade our offices. That no longer happens, so we spend hours in front of scanners trying to get files into the system. So right now, we're really working to digitalize all of that paperwork and really working on paperwork reduction as another cost-saving measure. Among that, I do want to say that Dr. Brown, you had brought up some of the challenges that we have faced in some of our properties, including Redwood Crossings is one of them. I actually spoke to some of our property managers recently, and I said, I'd really like for you to tell me from your voice, what is a day in your life as a property manager today? And it was very interesting, some of the feedback that we received from a property manager, but I thought this isn't revolving Redwood, this is just an overall general, and thought that maybe elevating their voices would help understand the challenges that are faced in property management. And this particular individual wrote very eloquently about people think property management is mostly leases, rent, and complaints. Some days it is. But the other days, it feels like being part social worker, therapist, crisis manager, and emotional support person all at one time. Some of the realities of on-site property management are difficult to fully appreciate until you experience them firsthand. A few examples from my own experience illustrates the unpredictable and emotionally demanding nature of this work. And I'm not going to go into all of these, but wanted to highlight a couple of them. During an eviction hearing, a resident became so escalated they began shouting about school shootings and making threats. The situation was serious enough that they later took, the judge and others in the courtroom were concerned for their own safety. That same resident later took their own life in the unit before eviction could be carried out. And that was an emotional, impactful toll on, that's not the only time. We've had other situations similar to this, but it's interesting to have their own words. In one abandoned unit, we discovered approximately 20 cats that had been left behind. In addition to extensive damage to the unit, the home was swarmed with flies, and an odor was so strong that I noticed it just before walking up. Coordinating emergency care and finding placements for that many animals was chaotic and emotionally overwhelming. Myself and other coworkers returned daily to feed the cats and clean litter boxes until rescue arrangements could be made, and the conditions were deeply upsetting to many of them. Over the years, there have been many sleepless nights caused by the stress of work and unsettling realities that come with managing housing for some of our community's most vulnerable residents. These are the kinds of experiences that are rarely visible from the outside, but they are part of the reality of on-site property management. The work comes with very high highs and very low lows. Despite these challenges, I find it incredibly rewarding and genuinely love what I do. At the same time, I recognize that this work is not for everyone, and I completely understand when staff reach a point where they feel burned out and decide they can no longer continue in this role. And I just wanted to highlight some of that. This is very difficult work, but our staff love what they do and are very, very mission-oriented at Salem Housing Authority. Our most vulnerable population is so important for us to see through. And this is just some of the examples. There are many highs out there too, and I'd love to bring back some of the great stories. And we try to do that and highlight that in the program management report. But we also kind of need to highlight some of the challenges that go through the daily work that we do every day. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Brown.
Thanks, Madam President. Director, this is always good to see you and you sharing about what's happening in not only in your life, but in your team's life. And I just want to say thank you for elevating those voices, because that's a part of the work that we, or even the community, we rarely ever see, but it's good work, and we know that it's happening. And so just a thank you and kudos to you and your team.
Thank you.
Commissioner Teichen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Yates, as always, thank you. And I echo Dr. Brown's sentiment, just bringing those voices to the room, both the people who do the work and of your residents as well. My question is about this challenge that I think we talked about within, I don't know, the last 6 months or so, about folks outside of Salem essentially using the system to access Salem's voucher capacity. The update that I heard you give us is that you're attempting to bill, essentially, if someone is in Las Vegas and using Salem's voucher capacity, which doesn't seem right, but it's something they can do, that you're now trying to essentially bill the Las Vegas Housing Authority for that capacity. Is that standard practice? Are we also getting billed? Is it going to work, I guess, is my question. Like, what's the a little bit more detail on it?
That's a really great, with vouchers, we do have options when it comes to portability vouchers. So anybody who has a voucher after a certain period of time can take that voucher and go anywhere in the United States that meets their needs. It is up to the receiving housing authority whether they're going to receive it and absorb that cost or bill for that cost. We go back and forth from time to time. If we're facing lease-up shortages, we will often just absorb that voucher and take it on. And other times, like right now, we have a shortage of funding and a shortage of vouchers, so we're billing for all of that to happen. But some of the challenges you're discussing, and I just recently, we had a recent one that came across, is that we had an applicant from New York, and they had applied on our waiting list here in Oregon, came to the top of the waiting list. They were not local, didn't have the intentions to moving to Oregon. Through back and forth and many conversations, through accommodations, they were allowed to stay in New York, and we're paying $4,000 a month plus in a voucher there. And that is something we cannot change. The way HUD requires us to handle that situation. What you will see us be doing is changing some of our plans into the future for a local preference only.
So you're saying that's not one of the instances we could send a bill to the sort of gaining housing authority. We can't send that $4,000 bill to New York.
No, we cannot.
That's disappointing. Okay, thank you for that update.
So how does that work with our, because anyone that we provide a voucher to, and I may be wrong on this, but we have to do an inspection on their unit on an annual basis. And so how do we meet that requirement if they're in the New York area? The New York Housing Authority does that?
Yes.
And so we farm it out to them?
Yes, there are still program requirements, and New York Housing Authority has to abide by those, and they actually bill us for that. So we get an invoice. We get invoices from all over the United States every month, and so we actually go through those quite often to ensure that we can't bill or absorb, but this is a standing practice for a long time.
Commissioner Brown.
Thanks, Madam President. So, Madam Director, I have a question for you, and I'm asking this question on purpose because I would like to know, I think I know the answer to it, but I would like the folks in the space and also that are watching at home who may have a similar question. So, in the past 30 days, the Department of Transportation, they recently swept some properties that we had the unsheltered living on, and I'm referring to underneath the bridge. And so they were there, 10-day notice was given, swept, and folks are moved. If you go by the bridge today, you'll notice that all those folks who were there before, they're back. They're officially back. So my question to you is, when you mentioned the vouchers, if someone was sleeping underneath the bridge tonight and they needed a place to live, how do they get their hands on that voucher where they can have a place to live and call their own? How do they get their hands on it?
So the very first thing would be for our homeless services team to do a phenomenal job and make great contact with them, but would be the very first step that we always encourage everybody is to get into a sheltering location. And then many people don't understand, but our permanent supportive housing, Redwood, Yaquina, and Sequoia, we have an alternative coordinated entry that I'm very proud of, because we have a lot of great sheltering in this community of Salem, and there's a lot of people in shelters, the micro shelters, the Arches Inn, Arches Lodge. Whenever we have a vacancy, we pull from coordinated entry from sheltering locations, so we always are trying to encourage people to seek shelter so that they can get into that pool, and then they can be referred over to a permanent supportive housing. Anybody can be on any of our waiting lists that are open. We have anywhere from 3 to 5 years of people waiting for any of our programs on any given day.
May I? So there's a wait list for 3 to 5 years. You mentioned the HST. This particular team, is that the team that you wait for, where you can get all the information from, or are there other entities that you work with also?
Well, I can tell you that through the years, we had the Homeless Rental Assistance Program, and we worked hand in hand with the Homeless Services team and the CLEAN team. And I can say firsthand that they do great work, and they're always trying to connect individuals and get them into resources. But we work with partners. We're at service integration meetings in both counties, in both Marion and Polk County. We're always trying to find methods to fill a gap in the community. However, we do have limited resources at points where we can't issue any vouchers right now. So we have no more vouchers to hand out at this time.
And one last, Madam President. So since there are no more vouchers at this particular time and there's a wait list of 3 to 5 years, would it be fair to say that folks who are living on the street or find themselves unsheltered, that Church at the Park would be kind of like their first door of entry? Would that be fair to say, or maybe not?
Well, there's multiple programs, and there's a lot of great outreach partners. There's some individuals may seek to go into, let's say, an Oxford House. Some people may want to go to Ideal Options. Some may want to get to Bridgeway. Redwood has the Shelter Pilot Recovery Program, which I got a 7-page report of the wonderful work in 3 months that is happening there, and that's another stepping stone. So they walk through Bridgeway door, they can then be referred into Redwood Crossings. There's multiple entry points from various locations, but I do understand that some of those come with different requirements for them to get into those programs and whether they want to participate in that. All of these are, the individual has to want to engage in it.
Got it. Thank you, Madam President.
All right. Unless there's any other questions, we will adjourn. Thank you so very much.
Wheels are weird.
Okay, I'd like to call to order this meeting of Salem City Council for Tuesday, May 26th, 2026. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Tigan.
Present.
Councillor Nishioka.
Here.
Councillor Matthews.
Here.
Councillor Gwen.
Here.
Councillor Brown.
Present.
Councillor Veng.
Here.
Councillor Nordyke.
Here.
Councillor Varney.
Here.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Here. All right. Chair Nishioka, do we have any additions or deletions tonight?
We do not have any additions or deletions tonight.
Great, thank you. Then we are moving on to council and city manager comment. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share this evening? Councillor Brown, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just have a couple things, or maybe 3 things I would like to share with folks that are here on the stage and in the audience. This past weekend, beautiful weekend, sun shining, birds singing, squirrels doing their normal thing, so it's a good spring day. In Highland Neighborhood Association, we had a peace walk. And for those of you who may not be familiar with what a peace walk is, a peace walk allows you the opportunity to walk through a community. You can pick up trash, say hello to your neighbors, but it's basically an opportunity where folks meet at one place and they show up with their gloves and their bags ready basically to clean up. And so we did that on Saturday, had a great time. We were able to pick up some trash at River Road, the park that we share quite a bit with Kaiser. And so I just want to give kudos to the Highland Neighborhood Association for taking the lead in that. The second thing, last Sunday, not like a couple days ago Sunday, but the previous Sunday, one of those organizations that does spend a lot of time helping individuals who are unsheltered. They've been in this community for 30 plus years. That entity is known as the Seed of Faith. Seed of Faith Ministries. This marked their 30 years in being a partner with the city. And so Madam Mayor actually read the proclamation for the church. And so it was good for her to see you there read the proclamation. I know they were very proud about that, and I'm pretty sure you'll probably talk about it also. But it just wasn't me. You had the city manager. She was also there with us, and the council president. So just thank you for taking your time out on a Sunday, you know, to be there in church. So that was beautiful. And third, the last thing, folks who know this, and I enjoy being in Ward 5. I enjoy walking around, whether it's picking up trash or saying hello to business owners, you name it. One of the goals that I had set aside was to have a tour with the city manager. So I, of course, was the Uber driver, and she was my guest. And so did you give me a 5-star rating? Okay, good. Just checking, because I had water and snacks in the car, so she had plenty. So we were able to drive around, and basically the purpose was just to show the city manager what I see on a day-to-day basis in Ward 5, where you can see the busyness on Lancaster. We were able to drive on Fisher and Ward, where I could show her some of the homeless camps. We were able to see some businesses or schools, but basically I wanted her to see this is what life is on the northeast side of town, because it's not every day that folks are going to travel on the northeast side of town. And so for her to see what I see, and then to talk about the strategic plan as to what this is going to look like when it comes to making some economically challenged places, to turning them around to where more people can not only move to northeast, but also feel safe. And so I just want to say thank you for taking the time out. I think it was almost like 3 hours out of your schedule. So thank you so much for that. That was a lot, because, you know, I talk a lot. So thank you. And so I yield the floor back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Councilor Matthews, go ahead.
I just wanted to highlight something that's coming up. So the Morningside Neighborhood Association is getting ready to celebrate their 50th anniversary. And so as part of that, they'll be having kind of a celebration. And so I was just looking for the information on it. June 13th, 2 to 4, is that right? Yep, June 13th, 2 to 4. And so it's a great opportunity to come out and just kind of meet neighbors and do crafts and some other things they'll have available.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Councilor Vang, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. In line with all of the celebration and anniversaries being highlighted tonight, I also wanted to highlight that May is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Month. It's a mouthful, but it is a diverse community. And I wanted to highlight the reason why May was selected as the month to celebrate. And it is because it marks the arrival of the first Japanese immigrants to the United States. The first recorded ones arrived on May 7th in 1843. And May was also the month that the Transcontinental Railroad was completed. It was completed on May 10th, 1869, which was largely built by our Chinese immigrants. And Salem's Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander history stretches as far back as the 1860s, and with the arrival of the Chinese immigrants looking for a better opportunity. And we got to celebrate some of that back in April with the proclamation for Qingming Day. And so I just wanted to highlight that tonight, that May is Asian American Heritage Month, and that here in Oregon, our community continues to make history and make Oregon a better place by having representation at all levels of government. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Councilor Nordijk.
Thank you so much. Good evening, folks. I love the fact that we meet in the library. And the Salem Public Library today had an outstanding post at celebrating 1 year of Salem's livability levy, which our voters voted to approve with a resounding number. And if you don't already follow the Salem Public Library's Facebook page, I recommend it. They do a lot of witty and fun stuff, as one might expect from a group of people who have dedicated themselves to a life of learning and knowledge and open-mindedness. But here's just some of the stats that they mentioned in recognition of what the levy has done for the Salem Public Library. All library staff positions have been preserved. 3 staff positions have been restored. 10 library staff vacancies have been filled. The West Salem branch hours have been doubled, which is a huge source of pride and joy for our West Salem residents, especially our young residents. In the year, they have had over 365,970 library visitors, with over 656,000 physical items checked out. There were 752 library programs and many, many more. They even managed to calculate the minutes of computer use, 1.9 million. I love the fact that people with a love of science and a love of knowledge are more than happy, gleeful perhaps even, to compile these stats, just proving how beloved this community treasure is. And I want to say thank you to the voters once more for investing in the Salem Public Library, a third space and a hall of knowledge that is free for all, something that every free city. And I do want to acknowledge our voters also. Thank you for investing in me. And I also want to extend my gratitude and appreciation for our mayor. Thank you so much for your service to our city of Salem as both a councilor, as a mayor. I look forward on working with you on our transition between now and January.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, Councilor Brown, I got to back you up on the Seed of Faith experience. That was inspiring, to say the least. It was an interesting Sunday morning. I had a church at my own parish, and then the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride out at the Harley and Triumph Motorcycles Gentleman's Ride event for Men's Health, and then the Seed of Faith. So fashion is not my strong suit, and I didn't know what to wear. Like, what do? I got to go to my church, I got to go to the Harley and Triumph place, and then I got to go to Seed of Faith. And I thought, yeah, leather jacket, that's good. And then it was, but what with it? I don't even know, and yellow. I think I'll wear yellow. I don't wear yellow much. And I saw it in the closet, and it just jumped out. I show up at Seed of Faith, and yellow is their theme color for the day, so for the event. I thought that was pretty cool. And the event itself, the Gentleman's Ride event, is really something. This is the first year that Salem has participated. It's a worldwide thing. Over 125,000 riders across the planet in different cities ride to bring attention to men's health, mental and physical health. Super important. Also, reflecting on the work session last Monday night on the North Waterfront Urban Renewal Area Update, I'm excited about the work we're doing to create long-term economic growth opportunities for Salem. Councilor Brown's been talking for a long time about the need for a broader conversation about Northeast Salem. And as we move forward, my hope is that we continue discussing similar opportunities in other areas of our community, including corridors like Lancaster Drive. The goal is to think strategically about how we can create opportunity and support long-term investment across Salem. Imagine a URA for Lancaster Drive. I think it might be quite something to realize. Thank you, Councilor Nordyke, for your comments. And, I like to keep politics out of this space. So I think it's best to move on with the meeting and allow everything to settle. I continue to offer a safe space for everyone to feel heard and seen. And that's important to me, psychological safety in this space. So thank you for honoring and respecting that tonight. All right, moving, yeah, you do? Okay, please go ahead, City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to highlight that
the Prevent, Treat, and Enforce staff report is on the council agenda tonight, and it is coming to you as information report, so there is no presentation from the staff. But what I wanted to highlight, the report does detail the engagement work that has taken place over the past several weeks. And staff have had many promising conversations, including meetings with Salem Kaiser School District, Marion County Health and Human Services, Willamette Health Council, Fentanyl Free Oregon, and our other law enforcement partners. So I am encouraged by the positive feedback and the momentum that it is beginning to build. So it's kind of, it is promising. So some of the gaps noted so far include convening recipients of opioid settlement money to network, share information, and promote best practices, and then coordinate so that we can deliver a better outcome, and coordinating a prevention education strategy, and also data sharing across systems. And one theme, as staff and I are continuing to meet with our partners, one theme that continues to emerge through these conversations is belonging. So many organizations are emphasizing the importance of creating those connections, building relationships, and ensuring that people are supported and connected to our community. So next, staff will continue these conversations and continue to meet more organizations, healthcare providers, and treatment partners. And our plan is to return in September with additional findings and recommendations so that the council gets to have a conversation. And that's going to be in sometime in December. So thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we're moving on to proclamations. And we have two this evening, starting with Older Americans Month. Could I please ask Karen Bolliger, President of Friends of Center 50 Plus, John Hughes, Advisory Commission Chair, and Katie Dobler, Future Planning Team Chair. And Marilyn, I see you here. Are you coming up? No? Okay. Nobody knows, but we prepared a dance number, didn't we? Okay. Come on over. Okay, whereas the City of Salem is committed to supporting older adults as they champion their health, wellness, and independence, and whereas the 2026 Older Americans Month theme, Champion Your Health, highlights the importance of prevention, personal responsibility, and making informed decisions to age well. And whereas older adults in our community bring a wealth of experience, knowledge, and wisdom, contributing to the strength and vitality of Salem. And whereas we recognize the need to create an environment where older adults can actively take charge of their health through preventative care, community connections, and healthy lifestyle choices. And whereas the City of Salem acts to support seniors by expanding access to nutritious meals, wellness programs, and social opportunities, ensuring they can thrive and age with dignity. Now, therefore, I, Julie Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim May 2026 as Older Americans Month. I urge every resident to recognize the achievements of older adults and to join in championing health, independence, and engagement in our community. Dated this 26th day of May 2026.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. Oh, I want to shake your hand.
Can you shake my hand? I just want to say, being an older adult, thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Karen Bolliger, and I'm currently president of the Friends Board at Center 50 Plus. And the Friends Board is the fundraising arm of the center. And so there's about 10 voting members of the Friends Board who are very interested and interesting. It's kind of a wild group to be in charge of, and that's just how I like it. We're in charge of two main fundraisers during the year. One is in March or February, the Cup of Joe, which we moved down to the convention center a couple years ago. Very nice venue, very nice food, and usually a very nice program too. And the second is the Boot, Scoot, and Brew, which is in September at Riverfront Park. Good food, good music, and a good sense of community. The other thing that Center 50 Plus has started this year, which will just, it has so many ramifications, is a food truck. Not just a food truck. The food truck goes out to mobile home parks. And there's always a hot meal for sale for the folks that live in that community. And they are encouraged to take their meal into their, whatever their community center is or the activities building or whatever, and eat together, the community aspect. And in addition to that, they have a mini mart. So you're a senior living in this, in reduced circumstances in this mobile home park, you can buy half a loaf of bread or 6 eggs. And in that way, more seniors are served. And that's really the name of the game. So, all right, Katie? Yeah. All right.
Just to add a few things, I'm working, as they shared, on the strategic plan, and it's been so eye-opening and amazing and really a lot of fun. We're actually going around and touring other centers around the state, and Karen and Marilyn and I and others took a road trip up to the Portland area, and we are knocking it out of the park in Salem. I mean, the differences, just what Karen was explaining around getting out and getting out into the community. Other senior centers are not doing that. The respite program here is a fabulous program, and so I'm just learning a lot. We're heading down to Southern Oregon next, and really looking forward to, I wouldn't say doing anything new, but keeping at what we're doing today. So I appreciate being a part of it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Did we get a picture yet? Okay, come on in. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our second proclamation. National Tourism Month. Karaku, please come forward. Do you want to go to the middle or stand over here and hide? Okay. Well, come on this way a little bit. All right. Thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you.
Whereas tourism and travel play are an essential role in supporting the economic vitality of the city of Salem and communities across the nation by fostering jobs, commerce, cultural exchange, and community connection. And whereas Oregon's tourism industry continues to be one of the state's leading economic drivers, contributing more than $14.6 billion annually to the state economy. And whereas visitors to the Salem region generated approximately $822.1 million in local economic impact during the past year. And whereas the travel and hospitality sector supports nearly 8,050 jobs in Salem area and generated $35.8 million in local tax revenues. And whereas Salem and Oregon offer exceptional cultural attractions, culinary experiences, historic resources, and outdoor recreation opportunities that continue to attract visitors from around the world. And whereas tourism enriches the quality of life for residents while strengthening the local economy and promoting appreciation for the unique character of Salem and the community. Whereas it is appropriate to recognize the many contributions of the tourism industry and the individuals and businesses who welcome visitors to Salem each year. And now, therefore, I, Julie Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim May 2026 as National Tourism Month, dated this 26th day of May, 2026. Thank you, Cora. Do you want to say something?
Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors. Thank you for your continued support of Salem's visitor industry. It's an honor to accept this proclamation on behalf of Travel Salem and all of the hospitality partners who work so hard every day to make visitors feel welcome in Salem. As you know, this region has so much to offer visitors, from breathtaking scenic beauty to cultural attractions to arts to all of our outdoor activities. I could go on and on. But I think what we all can agree what makes this area really special are the people and all the crafters and creators and artisans who are really passionate about what they do and so eager to share that with all the visitors and residents as well. So we're honored to promote Oregon's capital city as a really authentic destination and one that offers genuine hospitality. So again, thank you so much for your support and for really helping Salem thrive.
Okay, we are moving on now to presentations. Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District, come on down. Please, Angela, introduce yourself for the record if you would.
Give me just 1 second to get my notes up. So thank you. My name is Angela Plowhead. I am the chair of the Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District. I am thankful that you are allowing me to come here today and talk with you about what we have been up to this last year at the Conservation District, and excited to share with you all the ways that you have partnered with us. So I'll start first by just talking a little bit about what we do with the district and who we are. So our district consists of 5 zones. You can see them there on your screen. Each zone is represented by an elected official. And then we have 2 at-large positions that are also elected by Marion County voters. This year is an election year, and we do have zones 1, 3, 5, as well as our at-large 2 position, which are up for election. So if you're interested, I encourage people to go onto our website, and the application is there, the process is there. You can also reach out to the district, and we would be happy to walk you through it. So the district is located to the east side of the Mid-Willamette River Basin, and we work with urban and rural property owners, operators, public officials, and other partners. We have over 60 state, federal agencies, as well as educational institutions and private organizations that we work with. Our mission is to partner with people in support of thriving lands, clean water, and healthy habitats. We do this through our planning, our technical assistance, and our education. Our strategic plan, which you see there on the left, behind you, it's on the right. Well, no, it's still on the left. So on the left there is the strategic plan. That's our 5-year plan. That goes from 2024 to 2029, and it ensures that the work that we perform with our partners are in line with our district mission, which our goals are to inspire conservation, promote healthy soils and clean water, create healthy habitats, productive working lands, establish and maintain effective partnerships, and promote organizational health. What you'll see there on the, I'm sorry, that is our right, isn't it? That is our annual report, which talks about what we've accomplished over the last year. And I'm just going to highlight a few of those things. A lot of what we do happens through our grant programs. This past year, we've given a total of $469,390 to our partners and individuals throughout our district. We've done that through our Conservation Assistance Grant, through our Cover Crops Grant, our Special Projects Grant, and our Conservation Learning and Resources, also known as our CLEAR Grant. We've had another grant that we've been piloting called our partner grant. And this past year, we have partnered with 8 entities for 10 various projects. So we have also introduced what we call our Smart Spray Control System grant, which allows us to assist people with new, or we can even use existing, but new to our area, agricultural spray equipment that can reduce the amount of spray that's being used on crops. So a large part of how we provide our education programs or reach others throughout the community and provide that conservation education is through what's called our Little Habitat Project. We have participants citywide as well as district-wide. And throughout the district, we have 152 enrollees. Of those, 121 are here in Salem. Of those, we've had 60 sites that have been certified, and of those 60 that have been certified, more than 30 are here in Salem. So we have a lot of conservation happening here in this particular city and part of our district. So we also do our native plant sale. We've had 2 of those this past year, where we were able to distribute 8,124 native plants to 310 community members. Through that, we were able to generate over $10,000 in revenue, and we raised over $6,500, or we raised $6,500 for our scholarships programs, where we are able to support 3 to 4 different community members that are wanting to go to college and get education, further education in education and environment programs. So we also offer technical assistance. I mentioned that earlier. So we do that for free across the district, and our staff are there to assist people with a wide range of natural resource areas. They primarily include things like soil health practices, so reducing erosion, improving nutrients, and helping with higher crop production, pasture and livestock management, natural resource areas conservation, as well as urban centers and space enhancements through things like our Little Habitat program. We also offer education to both rural and urban audiences. We do that mostly through our agriculture conservation education presentations that we do with 4-H clubs as well as FFA chapters. We also have our Salmon Watch field trips, which allows students grades 3 through 12 to learn about salmon and their natural habitat, as well as salmon biology, riparian health, and we have a number of different schools that we do that with throughout our district, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. We also reach our community and help provide education through what we call First Friday, which is a monthly webinar, and we also co-host Conservation Spotlight on KMUZ. So I'll tell you a little bare about some of the projects that we're doing across Marion County and more specifically in Salem. So we are partnering with the Mid-Willamette Outreach Group, and that is a partnership between City of Salem, City of Kaiser, Marion County, and our district, where we focus on water quality education and community outreach. And we've also been really grateful to work with the City of Salem on our Emerald Ash Borer education and outreach. We've been able to distribute kits to people around the district to teach them how to help scientists figure out exactly where those ash borer have been infected in our trees. So some of the other education and community learning that we've done and through our partnerships have happened through Salem Kaiser Schools, Chemeketa Community College, Willamette University. our outdoor school program, and with specific classroom educators. This year, we've been able to provide education to over 3,300 youth and over 2,700 adults. We're very grateful for the partnership that we've had with Salem, and that you have helped us to do things like community-driven stewardship and restoration efforts through community gardens, bilingual composition workshops, habitat restoration, and urban forestry projects. We've worked alongside organizations like Friends of Trees, Pringle Creek Community, Wisdom Elderberry Farm, and many others. We couldn't do the work that we do without the support of our community and without the support of people like you at the City of Salem, so thank you very much for partnering with us. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone have questions? Yeah, Councilor Tigan, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Angela, thank you for the presentation. I guess I would just remark with the observation that it all flows downhill and that whatever happens upstream of the City of Salem is happening in Marion County. So I think the idea of helping people make the county as a whole a more sustainable place, dealing with erosion, the amount of spray that's happening, the sorts of things you're talking about matters, because all that water just comes right through town. And the cleaner and more sustainable it can be leading up to that point is really greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah, and I will say that, you know, we do a lot of projects with individuals. This is not something that we just do with organizations or cities. So anyone from our community can reach out to us, get free technical support, get help for how to manage their soils or erosion on their own property. Or along, let's say, a river. We have a number of people that will reach out and ask for grants or technical support with how to do those things. We work with a lot of different organizations and partners. So, you know, please feel free, all of our community members, to reach out to us. We would love to help you.
Yeah, Councilor Nishioka, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm interested in the loaning of spray equipment. Can you elaborate on what that is and why, and how effective it is?
So we're not focusing on just one type of spray equipment. So the grant that we have offered and that a number of people have utilized is used to do things like limit the spray associated with pesticides so that the sprays aren't going outside of their property, that they're able to conserve the amount of spray so they're not utilizing as much. One project that we had a new sprayer that was using LiDAR to assess where the rows were, how much spray each tray needed, and then distributing the spray in that limited amount. So it's healthier for our environment, it's healthier for our soil, and it's healthier for the produce that comes out of it.
Follow-up question, can you elaborate too on how many people are choosing to use this or ask for use, and is this to decrease the cost to them by having to purchase the equipment? I'm just trying to understand the process and how it might work for someone. Is it a large agricultural, or is it more in smaller environments?
So those are typically going to be for some of our farmers, our agricultural lands, where they have a lot of spray that they're using, and they're able to conserve many hundreds of gallons of the pesticides, which is all around a good thing. We have a dollar amount that's set aside for that particular project. It's a pilot project that we're doing this year. So it depends on how many grants we get requests for. So I think at this point we've given 3 or 4 of those. And so our grant processes work on a rotation basis. And so we have an open amount of time that people can apply for the grants. And then once the grant closes, those grants are awarded or not. And then we just move on from there. So This year, we've had a record amount of our grant programs being utilized, which is fantastic. That's our goal, is to give the money away and make sure that that conservation is happening throughout our district. And so, you know, that's our goal every year. We don't always meet that, but the last year we have had a tremendous amount of success with that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anybody else? No? Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for allowing me to come.
Yeah, you bet. All right, we are moving on to public comment. I'll call 2 names at a time. Please come forward. Looks like the button's already pushed, so you don't have to worry about that. Please say your name or your ward for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Christina Ballard and Lori Walker.
Hi, Christina Ballard, Ward 7. While I do serve on the city's Human Rights Commission and the CASA of Marion County Board of Directors, my comments here are my own, and they do not represent either of those bodies. Tonight's issues seem to be barriers to participation, specifically the proposed rule changes. Municipalities who install metal detectors do see a dip in attendance, and they do create wait times to get in, which is a barrier to public participation. The annual cost of detectors is $17,000 to $21,000. Instead, each year we could repair or upgrade 4 or 5 curb cuts to be ADA compliant, or pay for the upkeep of 2 Portland loos, or ensure all city committee and board meetings have proper minutes posted. As for the next issue, this one's my wheelhouse. I hold a degree in paralegal studies and a master's degree in communication. I teach freedom of speech issues. Courts have repeatedly held that the government cannot ban words simply because they are distasteful, vulgar, or offensive. In 1964, the Supreme Court established that debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, wide open, and that it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on public officials. What about the FCC? Well, they can issue fines if a few F-bombs get dropped. The solution here is a 10-second delay where the profanity can be cut, which is exactly what sports broadcasters do. Mr. City Attorney, your draft of the proposed changes implied that city broadcasts on Zoom and YouTube are regulated by the FCC. You should know that the only broadcasts the FCC regulates are over-the-air broadcast television and radio, not anything on the internet. Besides, what 6-year-old or 10-year-old is sitting up right now watching us in their living room versus all the other things they could probably be doing, if that's the concern. I'm more concerned with proposed rules which state that we need to follow the rules council follows, which means I could be silenced or ejected for saying things like, Mayor Hoy, you cannot follow basic parliamentary procedure and you have not met an ethics guideline that you won't violate. In the recent election, Councillor Nordyke won the mayoral race.
Your time has expired. Lori Walker and Kathleen Treppa.
Get used to this someday. I am Lori Walker, Ward 2. I am speaking regarding 5A tonight. I am opposed to metal detectors at City Council meeting. On-duty Salem police are always in attendance throughout the meetings, and I believe they would respond within seconds if something happened. I am opposed to handheld or walking through metal detectors operated by DPSST certified people. I have used metal detectors and walk-through detectors at the state hospital for many years. I am well-versed in those as well as with weapons use. I know there have been threats of violence made. Gun threats, I don't know. I don't know if those threats have been made anonymously or if there's actually a known person who's made those threats. But if the person is known, I'd be curious, have they been arrested? Have they been talked to? Is there concern? Do we know who? I'm curious if Chief Womack, retired Chief Womack, had an opinion on this, or if Acting Chief Ditto, if they've been asked their opinions on this, or had they given their opinions. I have never felt threatened in any city council meeting, loud meetings. People get loud, emotions run high, but I've never heard anybody threaten anyone in a meeting. The money involved in purchasing walk-through detectors, maintenance, or DPSST certified security, I don't know about that amount of money with having police in here who, they're getting paid, I think. Are you on the job? Anyways, can those machines be moved and reused at other places or other meetings? I don't think so. I think once they're set up, they stay where they're at, but maybe there's the movable ones too. The microphone could have a 10-minute, 10-second delay on it. Will all security departments, will all city departments need these kind of security issues? The amount of time to get people into meetings could be huge. The money involved could be huge. I have trust in the Salem police who are in attendance that will keep us safe, and I think we need to hear from them on this. And with Julie Hoy, or if you're fearful of those people as you refer to us, then maybe you should step down. Thank you.
Kathleen Treppa and Rachel Atchison.
Thank you very much. Kathleen Treppa, Ward 7. I am also interested in commenting on the proposed changes to the council rules. First, the intent of the draft language for new business under councilor items. If it is to ensure that the council not discuss or take action on anything that isn't already on the posted agenda, well, then I obviously support that because that's already a requirement. Council never should have considered a pilot procurement program to benefit local vendors last fall, which was not listed on the agenda, and that program still has not come back to the city council. The city attorney just needs to do his job better. As for the decorum changes, that's a lot of excessive language taken from Portland to replace a section that already existed. I have not seen anything in my time here that has been exceptionally disruptive or that hasn't been or can't be controlled by the presiding officer. The mayor has never had to recess a meeting due to rowdy public members, nor have the police had to interject or expel anybody from a meeting. The public has a right to participate in its local governance without unreasonable restrictions on its First and Fourth Amendment rights. The 30-minute time limit for public comment, that has always been in the rules, and it hasn't been enforced. I don't think suddenly enforcing it now, as was discussed during the Rules Committee meeting, makes much sense other than to limit public input on topics unpopular with some council members. As for guns and metal detectors, I support banning guns at public meetings and in public facilities, except for law enforcement. However, I adamantly oppose metal detectors and body searches by security guards. The PowerPoint for tonight's meeting is missing a few critical slides that were shared with the Rules Committee, like risk assessment for a possible violent act during a council meeting, or that councilors and staff would be exempted from going through a metal detector because disgruntled employees have never posed a risk in the workplace before, I say with some tragic sarcasm. So for a city that is in a structural deficit with armed officers already in attendance at public meetings, adding metal detectors and body searches to attend council meetings is a waste of money and staff time. It is an unnecessary violation of people's personal space for no reason. It creates an environment which could deter people from participating in local governance, and it's anti-democratic. I have attended many Salem council meetings, and I have never seen anything that was objectively threatening. The council should vote no on this suggestion. And finally, what is the impetus for recommending council liaisons to boards and commissions? Who asked for that and why? It seems like more work for unpaid council members, and I don't understand why staff can't provide guidance and history to the commissions and committees they serve. Thank you.
Rachel Atchison and Sarah Vick.
Good evening. I'm here about the proposed rule changes as well. While the profanity ban part bothers me, especially because it's so subjective, my greater concern is the intent to enforce the 30-minute limit for public testimony. I understand that you're all volunteers and that these meetings can run long. I'm often here with you on some of those late nights. But when there is an important issue affecting our city, it is especially necessary for you to listen to community feedback. Now you're talking about maybe limiting your exposure to the input of only 10 citizens. Another concern would be the selection of those 10 people. Will folks be lining up hours early for a chance to have their voice heard? Will that exclude the working person who rushes to the meeting after their shift and all the spots are taken? Will it open up the potential for a specific group to mobilize and make it so that only one perspective is heard? This is not democratic. I get that written testimony would still be accepted, but also know that that is easily ignored. It will exclude people who may have challenges with writing as a method of communication. Lastly, I do have to point out how ironic it is to have these rule changes proposed by a mayor who has consistently had problems following the rules of our charter. And I also hope that the flame duck shirt you are wearing tonight is not signifying your intent to burn it all down on the way out.
Sarah Vick. Be sure to hit the button there on the microphone if you would. Press that button on the microphone and say your name and your ward or your address for the record, please.
Ward 5, Sarah Vick. Thanks, several people, for covering issues that I was going to bring up, so I'm going to jump through. About the security augmentation, I welcome the conversation. I think it's long overdue. I want to hear Salem Police Department's wishes on this. Then I want to get them whatever they say they need by the next meeting. That may mean borrowing a portable mag station from a nearby school like North High. Today our social zone is magnitudes more volatile than we're used to. Unprecedented magnitudes of desperation, despair, moral injury are the norm. In a drunken rage recently, a MAGA man in Texas just shot his British daughter in a dispute over our dictator. There's the Luigi's and the attitude with a shotgun that got past Secret Service. I don't think we can expect our police department to be any better than that. And I would like to see all of y'all have the magnetometer available. I don't think it's too much to ask. We walk through it when we go to the hospital. As for the profanity issue, if a person wants to get up here and be an ass, they've only got 3 minutes. By the time they're done, they're standing between a couple of officers, which always seems to evoke politeness. That's all I got. Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you for your testimony. All right, we are moving on to the consent calendar. Chair Nishioka.
Thank you. I move for approval of the consent calendar with a pull of 3.2B by Councillor Varney.
Second. We have a motion and a second by Gwynn. Councillor, to your motion.
Thank you. The consent calendar consists of 3.1A, which are the May 11th, 2026 draft City Council minutes, and Resolution 3.2A, acquisition of property for the Marine Drive Northwest project, and that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have questions? Yeah, Councillor Tigan.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a clarifying question on item 3.2A, though I don't want it pulled or anything, on the Marine Drive acquisition project. It probably directed best to staff. I just was looking at the map that was provided as part of this, and the overlay that we have is just, you know, a black and white drawing, doesn't have the proposed acquisition across Marine Drive over a aerial photograph. And so I just wanted to confirm that if there were any parcels along that Marine Drive that included houses, or was it all just vacant parcels of land that are part of that property acquisition?
I'll ask City Engineer Danon to come forward. He might be able to address that.
And sorry I didn't give anyone heads up that this question was coming, so thanks for your patience.
Good evening, Alan Danon, City Engineer at the Public Works Department. The answer to your question, Councilor, most of the shaded area that you see on the map there is over vacant areas, but there is one parcel that includes a house. And that's near the very southern end of the map, the very last page.
On the last page, like either what's listed as number 24 or 26, do you know the name? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
I could go grab my laptop and tell you the answer, but yes, it's one of those.
It's on, but most importantly to me is that it's on the last final page, which is page number 4, near the city-owned parcels.
Correct. Yeah, it's the very southern end of the shaded area.
That's all the answer I needed. Thank you.
Good.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Danon. All right, will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Vang.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Tigan.
Aye.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Matthews.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Brown.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Moving on, we have no action items. We do have a public hearing on the annual action plan for HUD, CBDG, and home funds. Is it Michael Brown going to present?
The Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing to consider approving the plan year 2026 annual action plan for HUD, Community Development Block Grant, and home funds. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation, followed by other interested persons. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Michael Brown, Community Planning and Development Manager of Housing Production Programs and Incentives. And tonight I have the privilege of introducing you. Probably most of you remember Miss Otis, Tiffany Otis. This is her replacement, Eric Lowe. And so Mr. Lowe joined the city in August, and this is his first time before you and his first time to present an annual action plan. So I beg you to please be gentle. Anything that's wrong is completely on me. Anything that's right is completely on him.
William Mr. Lowe.
Hello, and thank you. My name is Eric Lowe. I am the new Federal Programs Manager for the City of Salem, also a Willamette graduate as of 2009, so glad to be back in Salem. I'm here today to present our proposed program year 2026 annual action plan for the City of Salem's use of CDBG and home partnership program funds from U.S. Housing and Urban Development. Just as a quick note, but program year 2026 for HUD is our fiscal year 2027. It's fun how those things don't align. As a brief overview, around this time last year, Council and Mayor voted to approve our 5-year consolidated plan for projecting out the usage of HUD funds. The idea behind a con plan is that we strategically analyze needs in the community vis-a-vis anticipated resources, and then put those resources to best use possible. So it's an opportunity for the city to look forward. As part of that 5-year consolidated plan, we also include the first year annual action plan. So that, again, began this time last year. And I'm here in front of you today to propose the year 2 annual action plan under this 5-year consolidated plan that was approved. For our 2025 to 2029 consolidated, essentially our strategic plan, we identified 4 key goal areas to work on, by far the largest and most important of which is the top one, to expand and preserve housing for low to moderate income residents. As you'll see in future slides, this is where the majority of our funding is planned to be used. But in addition to that, we use some of our funds to provide support for very important public service programs here in the city, like Northwest Human Services Host Youth Outreach Program, or and several others as well. We also support public facilities, including a project this year where we helped Marion Polk Food Share acquire a larger warehouse. And finally, we promote economic development, including our program supporting the Latino Business Alliance. The annual action plan, obviously it does depend on an annual congressional appropriation. So in the program year that we are closing out right now, we didn't receive our allocation until 8 months into the program year. So sometimes we have to be a little bit flexible. But long story short, the goal of an annual action plan, as compared to a consolidated plan, is to implement the consolidated plan with specific projects and activities, and also to tie into the project funding in the consolidated plan. So if you think of the 5-year plan as a big pot of money, we take a slice of that for 1 year, bring it out, and specify what we're going to do with it. The most priority need identified in our outreach and stakeholder engagement around our consolidated plan was the need for housing. Safe and affordable housing, addressing that continuum from shelter beds all the way up to permanent housing choices that Salem Housing Authority spoke to very eloquently earlier in this meeting. It fits within our overarching goal of welcoming and livable communities. And so that's something I wanted to speak about today. Last summer, I just included a couple of examples in here. Last summer, we completed construction on Applegate Terrace in my ward, Ward 8, which is an affordable housing project. And additionally, one of our planned projects for this coming program year is supporting Shaw's renovations of the Southview Terrace and Englewood West affordable senior living communities, which is a significant undertaking, over $3 million of our funds. Our program year 2026 expected allocations were announced by HUD a few weeks ago, about a month ago. So we have received, it's funny, 1% less in CDBG and 1% more in home. So functionally pretty similar amounts, $1,456,000 in CDBG funds and $678,000 in home funds. And so we take these funds and then we take prior year unspent funds and anything else we've planned around, and we combine those into these buckets that we plan to spend money on, and that's part of what the annual action plan calls for. So for program year 26, we are proposing a little over $3.9 million in the housing category. $3 million of that is specifically for the 2 renovation projects of the Shaw Affordable Senior Living projects, so Englewood West and Southview Terrace. We're also proposing $220,000 for supporting our public service programs, which is what we spent in this program year, 2025. We're proposing $110,000 for public facilities and infrastructure. This is significantly less than program year 25. This program year 25 was our big public facility project, the Marion Polk Food Share warehouse that just closed, which we're very excited about. We're proposing a continuation of $90,000 for supportive economic development. This program year that went to the Latino Business Alliance for their, it's essentially a small business incubator program that they run. Super awesome program. It's the vast majority are City of Salem residents, if not kind of within Marion County, Polk County area. And then finally, $364,000 for program administration. Quickly, I was just going to break down the CDBG and home side of how we anticipate spending these funds. So from prior year funds, a little under $500,000 for Englewood West and Southview Terrace rehab, and from current year funds, a little more than $500,000. So that's $1 million in CDBG, $2 million in home. I'll show you that in the next slide. We have reserved a little over $20,000 to conclude our property acquisition projects. So 2 years ago, we acquired a property on Market Street, and then in this program year, we acquired an adjacent parcel off of Evergreen Ave to essentially double the amount of land that the city had for a future affordable, I believe it's going to be a home ownership project, which is super exciting. We always want to empower people to have access to opportunities such as that, so that's really exciting. Speaking of housing, we have a little bit over $260,000 sort of left over for what we're calling an opportunity project, which is a project that will be identified probably through a notice of funding opportunity type process, which is pretty typical for how we operate. In economic development, we haven't, again, decided what we'll do with that $90,000 for program year 2026, but that will be another opportunity project. Public facilities, again, $110,000 reserved for an opportunity project there. And then in public services, you all heard about, or rather, you all may recall from previous meetings with myself and Mr. Brown, the Maclay Community Land Trust project, which is an affordable homeownership project that actually broke ground recently. I believe a month or two ago, they finally broke ground on that. They received their building permits and kind of went through the whole platting process. Recently broke ground on that. Well, they anticipate being done. I can't recall the expected timeline of completion, but we'll call it like winter, perhaps next spring. We have some money set aside for we're calling it a homebuyer assistance project, but really we're just going to provide down payment assistance for the individuals who are able to buy into that community land trust housing project. So that'll be about $204,000 out of CDBG, and then a little bit over $95,000 out of home for a total of $300,000. And we're just really grateful to be able to support folks in the opportunity to acquire homeownership. And then $296,000 in admin, and a chunk of that we always set aside for Fair Housing Council of Oregon to provide fair housing counseling services and consultation with landlords in the city of Salem area. Was I supposed to stop? I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah, go right ahead. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
That's all right, Madam Mayor. Your mic.
Sorry, can you define what an opportunity project is, please?
It just simply means we have not identified a specific project to use the funds on, but we've reserved it in that bucket of funding. So as part of our administration of HUD grants, we're required to have a citizen participation plan, which is our plan for how to manage engagement and outreach to the citizens of Salem to ensure that their voices are being heard in our administration of these programs. And our own citizen participation plan, I apologize, that we have approved essentially means that we can't move money between buckets above $50,000 without doing a substantial amendment. I was in front of you a few months ago for a substantial amendment. We try to avoid doing that, so we just sort of reserve money for the bucket, saying we want to spend this money here, we just don't know exactly what yet. What we'll do after this annual action plan is approved by council is we'll typically come up with what's called a notice of funding opportunity, send that out to not only all of the partners we've worked it with, but in general, broader marketing channels, because we do want to encourage people that haven't been grantees of ours in the past to work with us, solicit applications for that funding, and then go through kind of a review process to identify which specific uses of that funding would fit best with our anticipated needs of the community and our kind of 5-year strategic planning, which involves a significant amount of outreach to conclude. I hope that was sufficient. Great. And then for our home partnership program, which just to remind you is a little over $600,000, we've reserved multiple years of prior funds and about $72,000 from this program year for the Shaw Rehab Project. Again, that's $3 million in total, so it's a rather large endeavor of ours, but we think it's really important to preserving affordable housing, especially for senior citizens in the city. Some of that home buyer assistance project funds will come from home funds. We have $32,000-ish floating around for an opportunity project from prior years, as well as a little over $300,000 in current year program funds for an opportunity project to be identified. Finally, we do have admin, and then I would call your attention to Chodo operating. So Dev Northwest is our community housing development organization. They're our partner organization that we rely upon for the actual development of some of these projects. So Maclay CLT is their project, for example, and we just provide funding support. We're allowed to give them 5% of our home award every year, essentially as admin or capacity building for their organization. So it supports things like staff salary and other basic support for them to be able to do their jobs. And then we're also allowed to give them 15% as an operating reserve for future projects, which is not relevant right now because they're currently working on a project that we've given them money for. So, I said the last slide is just next steps. We finished our public comment period for our 26 annual action plan yesterday. We did not receive any public comment. Today, I present this annual action plan to council. If it is approved, then we turn around and we submit it to the HUD Portland field office for review and approval, and then we get to do the actual fun work.
Yes, Councilor Brown, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Mr. Lowe, it was Lowe, right?
Correct.
Welcome to the stellar team.
Thank you.
So a question on slide 7 or note 8 or 9, economic development. And I'm probably following in line with Councilor Nordyke and Councilor Warren's question. So economic development, how do you select those particular projects?
That is a great question. I was not here for the last round of our NOFO, so
look behind
Mr. Brown would like to join me.
Therefore, I will step up.
There we go.
For some reason, I knew you were going to answer this question for us. So how do we select those programs again, or those jobs, those projects?
What's happened in, excuse me, what's happened in the past, Counselor, is we have just gone out broadly with a notice of funding opportunity or availability, depending on which term of art you'd like to use. And we get applications for a variety of things. So for instance, some might be public facilities, some might be public service, or some might be economic development. And then we sit and shuffle these things to try to fit in as much as we possibly can. So as you're well aware, last time I was before you, we had issues with timeliness, which I don't know if council knows or not, but we passed timeliness.
That's good.
That is very good. So I had a libation after that.
I bet you did.
I may even had more than one.
You didn't share with the rest of us, but go on.
Yes. Well, because of that uncertainty created by the timeliness issue, we were a little reluctant to go out with a NOFA early like we typically do until we were certain that we would have a full program year 26 funding bucket. And so right now, all we've done is simply allocated into buckets and not so much into the activity level. So we'll do that now that we have our feet more firmly under us.
Got it. Madam Mayor, follow up. So I think Mr. Lowe had mentioned a partnership with LBA, the Latino Business Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
If they are an entity that you reach out to, which I completely support, for those entities or groups that are interested, and if they're not a part of LBA, do they just fall under, they go through the regular bidding process? Is that how they would possibly be selected?
Well, we would say we've got let's say in this case, we've got $90,000 for an economic development. So for instance, last year we had more than one group want to do an economic development project. However, only the Latino Business Alliance made an actual application.
Got it.
There was another, at least one other group that we'd had a conversation with, but they ended up not applying. So in that case, the selection was pretty easy because we only have one, so we chose that one. So if we go out this time and we have more than one, we will do our very best to try to satisfy everyone's needs with a woefully deficient amount of money.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Matthews, go ahead.
So when we're looking at the distribution of kind of this 3.9 million versus the other items, how do we determine our breakdown, our ratios of what we were going to be putting a majority of these funds into?
As far as this piece, the project buckets?
Yep.
Well, you may recall a little over a year ago, I was before you, and Shaw had identified a need for the Southview Terrace and Inglewood West rehab, and specifically that they had an application into OHCS, and they wanted to demonstrate to OHCS that they had city backing, essentially, and another funding source. It wasn't just OHCS. So at that time, council was okay with $1 million of CDBG and $2 million of home funds going to those two activities, and those two activities, of course, remain in that bucket.
And reflect in there. So about 900,000 is going to other subsidized projects.
Correct. Well, some of them in the top is soon to be determined, but yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask a question about the CDBG funds. It appears to me that they can be used for ADA improvements.
Yes.
And obviously, I mean, we even heard a testimony tonight that one of the things that are needed is ADA compliance on our sidewalks. And we have sidewalks all over the city that are in no way of shape that a wheelchair can get over. I think we're all pretty well aware of that. And we've heard that from multiple different constituents. I guess my question would be is there an opportunity for us as a council to make a decision to reallocate some of these undetermined funds to ADA compliant sidewalk improvements, since it still does qualify for the need of the program?
Yes, that is allowed.
Okay.
We'd have to do a substantial amendment. Assuming you approve this tonight, we'd have to do a substantial amendment, moving some of that out of the housing and down into the public facilities and infrastructure bucket.
Okay.
That's not a big deal. I mean, we'll have to do another 30-day comment period and that type of thing, but it's done. It can easily be done. I have actually over the last couple years been talking with the folks at Public Works to try to identify infrastructure things that we could do to spend our money in bigger chunks so that we don't run into a timeliness issue, and also try to unlock land for housing development.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that right now it's more of a concept than it is a plan, but it's something that, you know, we've actively talked about within the department about how to accomplish that very thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think I'd be very interested in looking at a possibility of doing that adjustment. Would that need to be done prior to this approval and then coming back with a different approval, or would we approve this and then go for the adjustment? I guess, could it be done before the?
What I would ask is that unless you have severe objections to this, approve this, because we have a program you're starting on 1 July.
Okay.
And so approve this so that we can at least submit it to HUD to say this is what our initial plan is.
Okay.
And then allow me to work with the folks in Public Works to come up with some methodology to identify what we would need to do, and we can do a substantial amendment.
Okay.
Councillor Nishioka.
Thank you. I'm going to change the subject, but that's a great question. Regarding the land trust, that the project that you've got going, is the city going to be overseeing that for the whole time, or is it another entity?
Are you referring to the McClay man?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that is actually owned and operated by Dev Northwest, which is the city's community housing development organization, which we only have the one. And so that's been in the works for 4 years now, because they acquired land, I think back in 2022, and they did a lot of the site work, and now they got the building permits so they can actually start the vertical construction.
Thank you for the reminder. We probably knew that, but I'd forgotten.
Well, it's starting to get cobwebs, so I understand.
I have one other question, if I could. Thank you. Talking about the economic development and getting the information out to people, and you mentioned that you spoke with somebody, but the application didn't come in. Do you feel that there might be some barriers with the application, whether it be language, whether it be maybe not understanding the process of filling it out, or other barriers that may be holding people up that could be helped with those potential barriers?
I do, yes. And some of it, unfortunately, is unavoidable because of the nature of the funding and all of the strings that come with this type of funding. The application system that we use, which is a piece of software that the city purchases from a vendor, is extensive. And I have looked many times at how can we reduce the number of questions, how can we reduce the demand for information, how can we reduce some of the compliance issues that we run into. And unfortunately, it's just the Code of Federal Regulations governing CDBG funds and home investment partnership funds is just very extensive. And I mean, I didn't start out doing this. I started out supervising the staff when I first got here 5 years ago, but I was also doing the finances for the whole department. And 5 years in, and I'm still finding things in the CFR that I wasn't aware of.
Thank you.
Just a little follow-up to that. Is there someone dedicated to communicating with the LBA on this topic, like how to fill out the forms, and do we have any direct relationship with them?
We're always available. So when Miss Otis was excellent at this, by the way, I want to acknowledge her. She created trainings prior to applications. She would have extensive classes on how to use the software that we use. She would have extensive training on how you had to comply with all of the things that come along with this money. And so we can certainly that's all still available to us, and we can certainly dust that off. And so when we go out for some kind of a solicitation, we will be more than happy to work one-on-one with anyone with their application.
Great, thank you. And yeah, Councilor Brown.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And I love that question, Madam Mayor, because I do think there's room for, throwing the net wide when it comes to economic development. And so whether it's through, working with LBA or another entity, I think that's a great idea. However we can, share that information, I think that's vital. And having said that, when you consider the McClay project, what have been some of the big headaches that you guys have ran into? Have you had any headaches with that project? Oh, from the look of his face, something tells me yes.
Well, Dev Northwest is a valued partner. I
All
want
right.
to say that. They have done many projects here in the city, and they have got a dedicated staff, and they work very diligently. They are a developer, and like any developer, and you've heard other developers in the for-profit community, they have sometimes run into challenges with respect to getting permits. Some of that, just to be completely transparent, is self-inflicted. They did it to themselves. This, I will say to my colleagues in the development services team, was excellent in working with them to try to resolve all those things. But nonetheless, it took time. And so that's one of the reasons why it's taken so long to get these units built.
Got it. A follow-up, may I? So what would you estimate would be the turnaround time to get a permit?
Well, I think Ms. Dalkey was before you a month ago and described the dashboard that she has created with all of those, and I don't have a ready answer, but I would say that that's probably the best source of information.
Got it. And one final more. So I'm going to give you a scenario, and I'm just trying to find out, does this scenario fit in with, I guess, the guideline for economic development? Suppose here in the city, there is a sidewalk that has been, ripped apart because of roots from a tree. And you're in a zone to where there are businesses there. Can a business apply for those particular funds to have that sidewalk fixed?
No. First off, I would say that probably falls more in the public infrastructure side than it would be the economic development side. The economic development activities are more structured to actual business development. So for instance, the project that we have going on now, specific to micro enterprises. What you're referring to would, as I said, would be a public infrastructure type of thing. This, you know, the business would contact the city presumably and say, I've got this tree with this that's uprooted my sidewalk, and the city could then, I won't rule out using CDBG funds to do that with. I would also say that the folks at Public Works would probably be horrified at the idea of attaching all of the federal regulations on something that specific. They would probably, I'm pretty sure I can say that they would much prefer a much larger project if they have to take on the burden of meeting all of the compliance issues.
Interesting. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much. So looking at, I am really pleased to see that the top priority here is housing, because that is our greatest need by far. You know, the median priced home in Salem is over 5 times that of the median income in the city of Salem, which is the national average. It used to be 2-to-1 ratio back in 1950. There's a reason why affordable housing is in scarce supply throughout the entire country. So I, for one, want to continue seeing this at the top of the list priority-wise. I'm wondering if there are unspent funds, I would want to know what you have considered spending on and have not considered spending on, and what's eligible and what's not. And this is not intended in this presentation to give that kind of detail, but for example, can you spend it on the kinds of housing vouchers that keep people in their homes? Could you spend it on building more housing for seniors, for example? Seniors are arguably the fastest growing demographic of people becoming homeless today in our city. And the city of Salem historically has partnered with United Way at the Mid-Willamette Valley. We sold them a piece of land for a song. I think it was actually $1. And they were able to build Colleges United, a group of 10 tiny homes that charge $500 a month, finally something livable and also new, right in the heart of a residential area next to a school, so that our seniors could have opportunities to engage with our youth. I know United Way is looking for phase 2. They're looking for investment partners for phase 2. Another option, look at the other end of the spectrum. We have a lot of homeless youth in Salem. Northwest Human Services has a host program for young adults 18 to 24, I believe is the top of their age. And they have on their cramped little lot right next to the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce property, they have a tiny little like manufactured home for their teens where they put them in like they stuff them in there like bunk beds or dorms. And these are teens who have gotten off the streets, they now have a job, and they're ready to move out. They've been building escrow themselves. The city has helped partner with these kids. These kids are ready to be self-sufficient, and there's nowhere for them to go. So when I think about, gee, where do we do with this money? Those are some options which may or may not comport with the very, very difficult rules of CDBG. I know it's federal money. I get it. I know how complicated it is. But those are just some things off the top of my head. To me, I see an urgent need to house these folks. And there are programs out there that are trying. They're trying so hard, and they would benefit enormously from a little piece of this pie. The last point I'll make, you may remember this council voted to create a social services fund. 50,000 of that went to Shaw. They spent it like that. They had no problem at all finding a home for that to help keep people indoors. And they were told to spend it down within, 3 months, 4 months? So I think you will be able to find homes out there. Those are just some of my random thoughts based on my own observations of going side by side with these organizations. But I urge you to spend this down as soon as possible.
Anyone else? Yeah, Councilor Matthews.
Just so I have clarity on timeline, because obviously I'm interested in a possibility of reallocating some of these funds. What do you think the timeline is for being able to do something like that? I know you mentioned that there's a 30-day waiting period, but for at least having the proposal of what we could do.
Well, as I said, we do need to get the plan into HUD because August 16th would be the statutory deadline. If we don't have a plan into them by then we would risk losing everything. So the plan would be to submit this as we've got it written, and then I will, as I said, meet. I don't let the grass grow under my feet, so I will meet with Public Works folks post haste and see if we can identify some things that would satisfy the type of project that you talked about. And of course, Councilor Nordyke also brought up some things, so we'll have to take a look at some of those and see if we can accommodate some of that.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely don't want to hold the funding. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'll look for an approval tonight. But it definitely is kind of with my mind of a potential amendment. So,
I'm sorry I can't be more specific.
No, I understand. Yeah. I understand. Thank you.
Oh, great questions. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. We have no one signed up for, what do you call it? Public comment. So we're going to close the hearing.
So I move approval of the PY 26 Annual Action Plan for submission to the HUD Portland Field Office.
Second.
Motion by Nishioka, second by Gwynn. Counselor, to the motion?
I don't think I have any further. I think we asked and received many good answers, so I think we're probably prepared.
Great. Any comments from anyone? Yeah, Counselor Teigen, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say looking forward to approving this year's plan. When we think about all of the funding that we bring to our community, being able to thoughtfully shepherd this federal funding in our community is a really important part of what we do. Over $4 million of impact in one night of decision making is really great. And it pales in comparison to what we can kind of cobble up in our general fund. And so I think it's really good that we take such a thoughtful approach. As someone in my professional past that's overseen how federal dollars get spent, I think it's also really important that you don't overwhelm community members with federal reporting requirements. And so the kinds of partners that we hear the city working with, our own Shaw, of course, our Public Works Department, the Community Development Housing Authority, the Latino Business Alliance. These are folks that can handle the federal reporting requirement and then design a program that can get the money in the $3,000 amount, in the $5,000 amount, as opposed to us trying to do that and then have someone bear the burden of that reporting, which can be really difficult for small organizations. So I really appreciate it. And Councilor Matthews, I think your idea is a really good one. I do kind of wonder if we also have a conversation about waiting a year because, we spent a lot of money last year on this plan getting the Marion Polk food share up and running, as Mr. Brown mentioned. This year, it's a lot of housing. If we really wanted to make a big impact on something like ADA compliance, chances are we would get a lot farther spending $1.5 million on that and programming that money rather than $200,000. So probably that's just for a future conversation, but as this action plan is set out, I really like it, and it's a great thing to be able to vote for tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, Councilor Brown.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I want to echo Councilor Teigen because, yes, finding a way to utilize these funds and making sure that we are, using them with fidelity, I think that matters, especially when we look back at least 1 year and where we want to go. And this hints right up with the strategic plan that you and your team have laid out. I think one of the things that I'm still connecting the dots on is when it comes to those federal dollars, how can we not make certain, but just want to make the community a little bit more aware of what's out there? And this is where I kind of get into the weeds of this, and I can call you, Mr. Brown, and we can have a conversation about it. Because one of the things I'm looking at, I'm going to go back to the sidewalk scenario, right? If you have a sidewalk that's in a zone to where businesses are there, and now you have this busted up sidewalk that no one can use, my argument would be ADA. Could that be the back door to where we could utilize those particular funds? Because if you can't use them through economic development, then maybe we possibly could with the ADA route. Again, I'm just throwing that out there. But I think there's room to have that type of a conversation, especially when we want to find ways to make sure our constituents who may be in a wheelchair, who may need some kind of assistance, that we elevate their particular voice and their needs. So I just echo you. So thank you. Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Well, I agree, Councillor Teigen. I think if it's not a big enough splash at one moment, then you're probably right, waiting. Although when I'm looking here, it looks like it's potentially a little over 950 grand that is unallocated at this moment. And so even in this year, I think 950 grand can make a pretty good splash. And so.
Thank you. Great discussion. Anything further? All right then, will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Teigen.
Aye.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Matthews.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Brown.
Aye.
Councillor Vang.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. All right, we are moving on to special orders of business, and we have item 5A, the proposed council rule changes. Dan Atchison will be presenting. I just want to say before we start this presentation and discussion that as we were in the council rules committee meeting, we realized that these are big issues that had come up to, not necessarily even from us, but to us, from members of the community or members of council. And we realized that we needed the opportunity to discuss these things with the full group. And we can't do that outside of this public meeting. So that's why we're here tonight. And I'm looking forward to a great discussion. Thank you, City Attorney Atchison.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. So before we get into the proposed changes, I wanted to give a little background. So over the past year, we've had a lot of contentious meetings with a lot of different issues from all different perspectives. We've had meetings that have run 5 hours or more, close to midnight. We've had a lot of folks come in very passionate about the issues. And most of these decorum rules that are already in the council rules and most of the proposed changes are meant to provide a more efficient meeting so folks can be heard, but while council can also get their business accomplished. Most of the proposed changes that are in here are actually just conforming to what the current council practice has been. There's a few changes which we'll go into. As far as the specific rule changes regarding decorum and public comment, there's proposed changes to rules 8 and 15, and then a new rule 8.1. And then other rules that we're looking at addressing are special orders of business, so what constitutes new business under a council or mayoral motion, and then just adopting the framework that council previously approved regarding appointment of councilor liaisons. Just in reference to some of the public comments we received tonight, the councilor liaison process started about, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago with council with sort of an ad hoc process to appoint councilor liaisons to certain boards and commissions. That concept was addressed during the governance project that we've been working on over the last couple of years with Baker Tilly. And then I would say about 4 or 5 months ago, council adopted this general framework, and we just want to get it imported into the rules. So the Rules Committee convened in January of this year. I asked the committee to meet to address some of the disruptions that have been occurring at council meetings. Over the past year, council meetings have been disrupted by participants through speaking or shouting over other speakers, shouting out of order, audience members engaging in arguments with each other. And council members have expressed to me, and I think to the city manager, concerns regarding disruptions and how the meetings are working. More recently, council has been more successful in avoiding disruptive behavior by setting clear expectations up front utilizing patience when disruptions are occurring, pausing the meeting momentarily, and providing warnings when there's a violation of the rules. The proposed rules generally update the current rules to be consistent with current practice and provide updated language to conform to legal standards. Specifically, that's in reference to Rule 8.1. So public meetings in general, where public comment is allowed, constitute a limited public forum, which basically means that participants have free speech rights, but are subject to rules to ensure efficient operation of the meetings. Restrictions typically include time limits on speakers, overall time limits on public comment, and then organizing public comment by on-agenda, off-agenda items, public hearings on a specific topic, and whatnot. You can also, to some extent, control or limit the manner in which public comment is made. The rules not only govern council's operation of the meetings, but can govern attendees' general conduct at the meetings. Disruptive behavior can be regulated. However, the law is particularly protective of individuals' rights to attend and participate in public meetings. So we should use extreme caution when restricting expressive conduct at a meeting. Outbursts or applause that may only momentarily disrupt a meeting or override what a speaker is trying to say are okay to warn, but that type of conduct should not be grounds to remove an individual unless it's repetitive or prolonged. There's not a crystal clear black line rule, at what point you can exclude someone. I've been with the city since 2007. I've been city attorney since 2013, and on only one occasion have we asked a person to leave. So it doesn't happen often, and that's the way we want it. So Rule 8 allows for suspension of public comment due to actual disruptions. As you've noted over meetings over the past year, we have advised folks that we are going to suspend public comment if we keep having disruptions and outbursts and things like that. Those sort of warnings have been issued by mayors as long as I can remember. By 3 or 4 mayors ago, that was a common practice. There's nothing in the rules that lets you do that. So one of the proposed changes to the rules is to allow the presiding officer, typically the mayor, to suspend rules, and that's subject to a council vote. So if the mayor feels that the disruptions are getting out of hand and we need to suspend public comment, which frankly is a fairly extreme measure, the mayor has the authority to do that, but council can say, nope, we want to have public comment continue. The other rule change in Rule 8 is a prohibition on sticks, poles, and other objects. Typically something you might see attached to a sign. It's just basically a safety concern, and again, we've advised folks at meetings not to bring sticks, not to attach stakes to signs. It's fine to bring your sign in, but don't attach it to a stick just because it's a safety issue. Again, that's not in the rules, so we're just putting it in the rules to make it express. Rule 8.1 is a bigger change. It deletes a section of the current rule regarding removal of people and replaces it with this language. This language is closely modeled on what the City of Portland's rules provide. They've been through the wars, so to speak, and gone to court several times on excluding members of the public due to disruptive behavior. And the court has said, no, you can't do it in this instance, you can't do it for this reason, and you've got to provide this and this and this. So basically, that's what 8.1 provides. It gives you that framework to do that legally. Again, it's a measure of last resort. We're typically not in a position where someone needs to be excluded from the meeting. And all this is just basic rules for the council. Obviously, if someone is making an active threat, you don't need to invoke a rule and take a vote. That's why we've got the police in attendance. If there's an actual threat, they can address it without someone raising a point of order, so to speak. So there's a difference between ejectment of a person and then exclusion of a person. In either case, the person needs to be warned. We can then, the presiding officer would then direct the sergeant of arms, which under the rules is the city manager. Typically, the city manager would ask Salem Police to ask the person to leave, In most cases, the person will leave voluntarily. If they refuse to leave, it's up to the officer's discretion. They have certain discretion whether to actually take that action. And believe me, it's a significant action for police to require someone to leave because it potentially injects use of force, which we don't want to do, obviously. So at the end of the day, it's still the officer's discretion on whether they're going to take action on that. And then exclusion is a more extreme example. You could exclude someone from a council meeting for 30 days, but they have to have 3 or more incidents where they're violating the rules within the prior year. So that would be a pretty extreme measure to take. Prohibiting profanity, I have to say that I agree with most of the folks who are critical of this proposed rule. I think it's an incredibly vague standard, and vague standards under free speech are usually not a good idea. My thought is that this rule needs to go back to the drawing board. One possible way of addressing this is to encourage folks not to use profanity without prohibiting it. I think the general encouragement that's been on the CCTV announcement at the beginning of the meetings, as well as the mayor's announcement before public comment, has been pretty successful. Of course, we haven't had those contentious issues that bring out a lot of passion in people, so you never know. From a decorum perspective, it helps by limiting profanity. It helps an efficient meeting. It helps folks feel welcome to attend the meeting. We do have children in attendance at council meetings, even after the post 11 o'clock ending time for some of our meetings. There's still youth here. And we want to encourage youth to attend and participate in our meetings, and it's not a good environment for that sort of thing. That said, it's a particularly difficult thing for us to regulate. So at this point, I'd probably ask us to not adopt that part of the rule and send it back to the drawing board. And I would encourage council to give feedback on what they'd like to see on that. I'm going to pause for a second. That was the discussion of decorum. Do you have any questions on particular rule changes or items in general regarding that part of the presentation? Seeing none, I'll just proceed.
Councilor Tigan.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager Atchison and our city attorney. I just want to confirm if you can go back to rule, the part that talks about Rule 8. So just if we made this change or acknowledging the rule as it stands, allowing the suspension of public comment due to actual disruptions, under this, you're saying it would still require a vote of council to suspend it. We're not changing it so it makes it a unilateral decision by the presiding officer?
So currently in the rules, there's nothing in the rule that allows the presiding officer or council for that matter to expressly say you can suspend public comment. Now, if someone were to bring a motion, I want to suspend public comment, you'd second it, you council would discuss it and then vote on it and do it. What I'm thinking about, or what I think the committee was thinking about in this instance, is where you've got a large crowd of folks who are being very disruptive, who are not allowing the meeting to continue. One possible remedy for that is for the presiding officer to say, if we don't have order, if we're not allowed to let speakers speak, we're going to suspend public comment. If the disruption continues, the presiding officer, typically the mayor, could just suspend public comment without taking a vote of council. If council said, no, we don't think that's right, we want to continue public comment, there could be a motion and discussion and then a vote to continue public comment.
So this change would essentially empower the presiding officer to make that decision while reserving the ability of council to override it through a vote.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Councilor Gwynn.
Well, my question is in regard to Rule 15. What we didn't talk about was limiting public comment to 30 minutes. And I really struggle with that one. I struggled during our committee meeting on this, and I continue to struggle. I do have, before you say anything, I have one question. Because isn't it part of the rule too that during council comments, we're supposed to be 2 minutes. We're not enforcing that, yet we're going to limit public comment. I'm just curious.
So during the committee meetings, we did discuss the 30-minute periods for public comment. There's one at the beginning and one at the end. The committee pretty quickly tabled that discussion and didn't want to change the rule, but didn't propose to actually apply and enforce the rule. So these proposed rules don't change that rule. It leaves it the same. And the assumption, at least on my part, is that we'll continue with our current practice, which is to ignore the rule.
Councillor Matthews.
I will say I do recall at least some of our discussion during that time. And one other proposal that I thought was intriguing, which still allowed for the plethora of public comment, but also allowed a reduction in time, was to not limit it by length of public comment in the way of 30 minutes and then no more after that, but instead putting some ratios on it. So once you hit over a certain number of people that have signed up, the public comment time for each person reduces. So instead of being 3 minutes for each person, it reduces down to 2 once you get over a certain point. And then if there's beyond that point, and whatever those standards are would obviously be set. But I thought that was an interesting and more appropriate proposal in my mind than the 30-minute limitation, which we actually already have right now. We just don't enforce. Is that right? And so, so anyway, I thought that was intriguing, and I thought if we were to be looking for something, I'd be more open to that.
So within rule, I believe it's Rule 15, there is authority for the mayor to do that already. So the mayor could limit speakers to 2 minutes if there's, more than 30 minutes or more than an hour, or more than 2 hours of folks signed up to speak. But yeah, that was a discussion at the committee as well.
Councillor Gwynn.
I guess my concern with this is I personally don't want to discourage public comment. So if we have something in rule that we're now bringing forth saying we have a 30-minute time limit, then are we going to have people that show up here and go, I'm not even going to sign up because we have a 30-minute time limit, so I'm not going to get to speak anyway? So that's my concern.
From the city attorney and not the deputy city manager perspective, I hate having rules we don't enforce. So either amend the rule or enforce it would be my suggestion.
Councillor Brown.
Was that me? Thank you. So just so I'm clear, we're not really changing anything when it comes to the 30 minutes. Since we don't enforce that, there's nothing to actually change, right?
Correct. So the current rule allows for 30 minutes of public comment on agenda items at the beginning, item 2 on the agenda. And then item 8 is 30 minutes for other than agenda items. And that's what the rule provides. It's never been enforced in my tenure, and we're not proposing to enforce it now.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Councillor Nishioka.
Thank you. I don't have the opportunity to serve on the committee, so I don't know the conversations that you had. I do know that we received a lot of public testimony that felt that these rules should be re-examined and maybe not agreed to tonight. And I do feel strongly that if we haven't been reinforcing the 30 minutes for, 13 years or more, my question would be, then should we just remove that and not have it in there at all and allow the testimony to be as people are sign up? I also am concerned, I see what you're saying in the sense of productivity to have less time if it's all on the same item. But again, I think if I were coming to give testimony, I would be very frustrated if I came prepared for a 30-minute presentation and then wasn't, or a 3-minute presentation and then, 30-minute. Wouldn't that be nice? And then not given that opportunity. So I'm not sure I would feel that that would be a way of managing. And I also, as one of the public testimonies that was here in the room, this was something that I was also thinking about, is the difficulty that some people have in arriving to be able to sign up and the rush to try to get signed up so that they would be of the first 10. So I'm uncomfortable with how some of this is written. And I guess I don't know if what we need to do is have the Rules Committee review it again with what testimony has come in and reconsider. I didn't really ask you a question, Dan. I guess maybe maybe the question would be, should we consider removing the 30-minute that we have in the rules now?
I would say that, at tonight's meeting, there's been a couple other ideas suggested regarding the limits on the public comment periods. And, certainly the committee could take a second look at that and look at other proposals as well and make a new recommendation to council regarding that rule specifically. And there's nothing urgent here with these rules. So, if council elects to refer this back to the committee or refers it back to staff, I think we do have a meeting coming up, a Rules Committee meeting coming up on the 29th. We could touch on that. There's a few other agenda items as well, but certainly depending on the scope of what council would like the Rules Committee to look at, we could probably come back fairly quickly.
Thank you. And I want to thank the Rules Committee for all the work that you did. And I can appreciate the fact that it was probably a challenge. So thank you for all of your work, and to the city attorney as well, and the staff that was involved in this. I recognize that us trying to say, hey, wait a second, it is not always appreciated in the sense with all the work that was done. I think the work was still necessary, and I am glad that it's been brought forward so that we can look at some of these options.
Anyone else? Councillor Varney.
I wanted to say I agree with that, what you said. I watched the Rules Committee meetings, and there were really good questions. And after seeing the testimony and the discussion tonight, I do think it'd be great for the Rules Committee to talk about these at the next meeting, if they have time to, or whatever, on the 29th. I was going to add something else, and now I don't remember what it was. Anyway, yeah. I don't think we have to do anything tonight. Oh, the word I wanted to, I do like the fact that we are codifying some things that we have been kind of recommending or doing. I think that's a really good part of it. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Nordyke.
Thank you. I was going to wait until the end of the presentation, but since everybody else jumped in, I'm not in favor of the profanity ban as proposed due to the First Amendment violations. I'm in favor of increasing, not decreasing, transparency within this body, and this is one of the ways that dropping a couple F-bombs is included. I can't help but provide a little bit of humor there, because that's how so often profanity is used, to create humor, to demonstrate your passion, the depth of your convictions, and that's why it's considered free speech in many circles. Like Councillor Nishioka, I want to extend that olive branch and say, hey, this is a rough draft. And so I'm not in favor, just going down the line. I'm also not in favor of the bullet point under Rule 8, General Decorum. It's the second from bottom bullet point that said the presiding officer may suspend public comment for all participants if deemed necessary. I am not in favor of that either, because we have a way of handling folks who are causing the actual disruption. We've seen folks cause disruptions, right? If everyone else is playing by the rules, I don't think it's fair to suspend public comment. If everyone else is sitting there quietly, allowing someone to have their 3 minutes of public comment, I don't think it's fair to suspend their ability to provide testimony because someone else is being actually disruptive. So I feel strongly about that. And I feel that the section under the rules, actual disruption, meaning conduct that substantially interrupts, delays, or disturbs the peace and order of the meeting, making it substantially difficult or impossible for the meeting to continue. I think it's well defined here, and I think the presiding officer is going to be able to identify it when they see it, and you have to warn the person. And I appreciate the amendment, City Attorney, under Rule 8.1A, that you first have to warn someone to knock it off. I think that's fair. And I think it also sends a message to everybody else in the room that, hey, if you're going to be actually disruptive to the point where people can no longer give their testimony and they're too intimidated to come up to the podium because they're being booed and shouted down, I think it's appropriate to warn them and follow through that. To me, that's a much better approach than trying to define which four-letter word is too dirty and which you can say out loud. Those are just my thoughts. And I would recommend, rather than sending it back to Rules Committee, just perhaps have staff take our input into consideration. If there's enough consensus from this group tonight, maybe just rather than sending it back to Rules Committee again, it might make more sense for staff to present and circulate a proposed change.
Councilor Brown.
I've been sitting all night, so this is kind of nice, but I'll proceed at your leisure.
Oh, okay, well, okay.
Go right ahead, sir, unless you want to throw it in.
Well, since we're all here. So on Rule 8, the one that I'm struggling with, Mr. City Attorney, is the sticks, the poles, and the objects. So, and I think we're setting ourselves up a little bit in this one, because I get the intent. I get the intent says, okay, if you make a sign and you put it on a stick, that stick could be turned into a weapon. I totally see that. The only problem I see of how we could be setting ourselves up is that we'll be in here or over there. Am I pointing in the right direction? Maybe. Yes. Over there. No. Wherever that office is, that building of ours, if people are trying to come in and they have some signs that they've rolled up, right, that they have to, like, you know, span out, who's going to tell them at the door that you can't bring that in? And the reason I put that as a question is because if the person with the badge on has to tell them that, that could be a potential conflict. And what I don't want to do is create an unsafe environment, A, for that person with the badge on, but two, but the person who's coming in and they have their information on a sign. And so that could be ugly within itself. And so I'm struggling with that because, again, I get the intent, but I'm also struggling with how we could be setting up that person with the sign and that officer who has to tell them, hey, put that sign back in your car. So.
If I can address that. So, I mean, this has been sort of the unspoken rule or the unwritten rule for a long time. We have staff, not sworn police officers. We have staff that greets folks and advises them you're not supposed to bring sticks and poles in. It's happened. I remember a meeting a few months back where there was a large banner with big steel poles attached to it, and the first thing I was thinking, great, you know. But you know, if someone doesn't comply, and this is a rule, and someone doesn't comply, you know, we would maybe involve a police officer at that point. But it hasn't been a significant issue as far as getting folks to comply with that in the past. That's not a significant concern for me.
Councilor Matthews.
And so that I'm clear, because you said it hasn't been a significant issue in the past, if for some reason, the reason it needs to be in the rule is because if someone didn't apply at this moment, we wouldn't actually be able to enforce the ability to say, no, you can't bring it in because it's not in our rules. And so we would need this to basically be able to have any type of actual ability to say, no, it's actually a rule, you can't, not just our perception of a rule.
That's largely correct. I mean, you know, again, if we're going to have a rule that we're enforcing, it should be in the rules, right? And if we have a rule that's in the rules we're not enforcing, maybe the converse is true.
I think you should move ahead there.
Jump on that. Okay, the next couple things are relatively innocuous. So this is an amendment to Rule 5J. It basically defines what constitutes new business in terms of a council or mayoral motion. So essentially, under the proposed amendment, new business equals an item that is on the agenda or an agenda item a new business is not on the agenda or an agenda item with no recommendation. So obviously not on the agenda means it's not on the agenda. This is a new piece of business that a councilor is bringing forward. Items without a recommendation are typically information reports on item 6 on your agenda. These are just information. We're not requesting any council action. So not new business is basically items that are on the agenda and have a recommendation. So if there's an action item, a resolution, or a recommendation to do something at a public hearing, a counselor can bring a motion to say, okay, I don't want to do what the recommendation says, I want to do something different. That could be the exact opposite of what the recommendation is, or it can be an amendment to it. The reasoning here is, as you heard in public testimony, is we might have an information report that's providing information regarding a subject that council asked for. The counselor might bring a motion to then start a policy or a program regarding that information. While the item's on the agenda and council is aware that this is going to be discussed at the meeting, the specific action that's being proposed is new to folks. And the idea behind this rule, it's a council-based rule. It's not necessarily a public-based rule, although there is a component to that. But the idea is not to surprise your fellow councilors. So by getting it in writing Tuesday before the council meeting, it gives us a chance to get it out on the printed agenda so all the other councilors knows what's coming and can decide on their own how they're going to address it at the meeting.
Councilor Matthews.
Have we ever had that happen, Dan?
We did. Thank you for asking. I appreciate the question. Yeah, thank you, Councilor Matthews. It came up a while back when you had made a motion on an information report regarding purchasing. And you and I talked about that prior to the meeting, and you asked, hey, can I bring this now or should I wait? And I thought about it, and I was like, well, you know, it's on the agenda. This wouldn't be a huge surprise to folks. And I didn't think it was necessary. In retrospect, I probably should have told you to wait, but you asked the question, and I told you to go ahead and go with it. I'm moving on. All right, so the other rule, I believe it's 17, but the screen's blocking the number there, adopts the councilor liaison framework for making appointments. Again, this is something that council's already discussed and approved. Basically, these are considerations that council can make. There's no bright line that says, yes, you can appoint one, or no, you can't. This is a discretionary decision of council. A board and commission can request one, or a member of council could say, I'd really love to be the liaison for X committee, and council can decide whether to appoint someone. The general considerations that were put into the rule are, you know, does the group need additional support that council can provide? Is the group's subject matter particularly complex or broad where it might be helpful to have a liaison there? And is there a strong connection between the group's work and particular council, you know, current priorities? One of the other things that council discussed that I think is in part of this rule is there was sort of a disconnect between the work that boards and commissions are doing and what they're doing and what council's doing, and not a lot of communication going back and forth. Having the liaison there is sort of that, provides that connection between council, so at least one member of council knows what's going on at the board and commission, and they can bring it forward to council for discussion. And that's come up on several occasions. I think Councilor Varney serves on SPRAB, the Parks and Recreation Board, and there's been at least a few occasions where we've had items relating to SPRAB or just items that they're bringing up that Councilor Varney has been able to inform council on. One particular change that the Rule Committee made beyond what was in the previous council discussion was just make it clear that the liaison doesn't represent council, doesn't speak on behalf of council in front of the board and commission. They speak for themselves, unless council gives them specific authority. One concern that was raised, and I think that was mine, was that, board and commission members might feel sort of beholden to that particular council liaison, and we don't want that one member of council to be directing the activity for the board or commission. So we just want to make it clear that they're speaking on their own behalf and not on behalf of council. Okay. Metal detectors. So the staff report wasn't crystal clear, but state law already prohibits possessing firearms and dangerous weapons in public buildings like council chambers, in this building as well. people that are licensed to conceal carry, police officers, active duty military members who are performing official duty, they're all exempt from that policy. So what a metal detector policy would do is essentially allow council to apply the prohibition. Recent changes in Oregon law would allow but not require council to also remove the exemption for concealed carry holders, so they would also be prohibited from bringing a weapon into a council meeting. So to implement metal detector policy, we would need to just adopt that policy in general. I'd recommend putting that in code through an ordinance and not through a resolution. It's more official, it's easier to identify. We would utilize state licensed unarmed security to operate the equipment. There's a special license or certification, as I understand it, for DPSST for folks to operate metal detectors. This would not be a police function. This is essentially a private security function. We don't want to confuse the lines between administrative search, which is the metal detector search, versus a criminal search is what police do. Police are going to be there in case there's an issue, but they're not going to be conducting this operation. So before we would implement it, we would do a lot of outreach to the public to make sure they're aware of the policy. We would post signage at council meetings. I would anticipate several months of signage and outreach prior to us using the metal detectors, just so folks are aware. Because what we want to avoid is folks coming to a meeting and not being able to attend because we're not going to let them in because they're carrying a weapon. Purchase and setup of the equipment, obviously. The PowerPoint slides that are included in your presentation talk about some of the types of metal detector equipment. The ones we would probably recommend purchasing are mobile, so they can be used in different locations. We could potentially share it with other locations where there's a need for a metal detector. The more modern metal detectors aren't the invasive search where you've got to take everything from a pack of M&Ms to your car keys out of the pocket. They look for larger objects that are more likely to be weapons. So the process of going through the metal detectors is usually much more efficient than we have maybe thought of in the past with older detectors. So process-wise, attendees at council meetings would be required to submit to the administrative search, which is passing through the metal detector. If something rings positive on the metal detector, they have an opportunity to remove objects. If they pass through again and say they don't have anything on them that could cause this to happen, we could perform a pat-down. That's voluntary with their consent. However, if they don't consent and they don't clear through the metal detector, they wouldn't be admitted. We're not proposing that the city have a weapons check at the door, so if someone comes in with a weapon, we're not going to let them attend. They will need to leave the area, safely secure the weapon, and then they can come back and enter the meeting. The policy would be subject to council's discretion on how it's written and any possible exemptions. Suggested exemptions would be obviously the council members, city staff, and CC media staff, other elected officials and city consultants. So if we have a consultant that's providing a presentation, they could potentially be exempt from this as well. First year costs, this is approximate. This hasn't been sent out to bid. We don't have real clear numbers on this, but the equipment is about $20,000 for initial purchase. Staffing costs is about $20,000 annually, so carrying costs year to year is about $20,000. And if council wanted to move forward on that, we would bring back a potential policy for council's consideration.
Any questions?
Are we discussing? Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, are we discussing metal detectors tonight? That's the whole plan.
Yes.
So I'd ask if you have questions, please raise them now. If it's just deliberations or discussion, I can get out of your way and you guys can enter that discussion.
So I don't have a question about the metal detectors. Well, kind of, sort of. I see the purpose. I do see the purpose, and I think I am one of those individuals. When we were in the chambers as being redone, I was one of those folks that was like, you know what? I need to make sure when people come into this room that they don't have any weapons. And the reason I voiced my concern, because if you remember where we sat, right, you know, our backs are to the doors. And so my concern was somebody's going to walk in these council chambers, and before my man over there can tackle somebody, I could be just a dream, you know, a memory. And so my concern was we need metal detectors. At the same time, I do realize that metal detectors are not free. And I don't think we discussed that in any of our budgets. And so on one hand, yes, they're worthwhile having, but on the opposite side, if we didn't discuss it, how are we going to pay for it? Because for those of us on the budget committee, and that's everybody on this stage, we do realize that we are still very, very close to where we need to be, and we're not out of the red 2 years from now. So yes, it's important, but I also see the need that says, hey, I don't know how we're going to pay for it.
I will take that as a question because I wanted to make a couple other comments related to that. Is this discussion of metal detectors or security at council meetings is age old. It's gone back, you know, decades. The particular configuration that was at council chambers wasn't conducive of safe feeling for any of the council members. The audience was right behind you. There were incidences where people were passing right behind you where your chairs were, reaching out and touching you, things like that. You're up here, you're volunteers, contentious meetings happen, and it's not a good feeling to be in that position, so I totally get it. In addition, you know, I'm aware of threats that have been made to multiple members of this council and prior councils. They happen. The likelihood of someone coming in here and doing something violent is extremely small. I will admit that freely as someone who sits up on this dais. That said, it is a thing that happens, particularly in today's environment. So, you know, it's certainly a trade-off. I'm not saying that it's a simple decision that council should do this, because, you know, it does affect folks when they want to come in the meetings. It's going to be a hassle. There's going to be folks who just outright hate it. That said, it's not just for you or staff. It's for every member of the public who sits down in council chambers.
Councillor Matthews.
Well, I wanted to kind of pull off of something you said, and that was it's not just for us and staff, but I do think that's an important aspect of this, that the staff are, even in the new scenario of this chamber or this library area, we don't have our back to the door, but there are people at the very back of this room that do, and it's the staff members. And so I don't think it's just about making sure that we're protected, which obviously, like you've mentioned, multiple of us have had death threats throughout this process, either during the campaign or during other parts of the council meetings throughout our time. But it's not just us that also have the bullseye on us. There are other people in this room that are also at risk. And so I think I understand it's a cost and there's an expense, and that's a hard thing to palate, but it's a pretty commonplace at this point in society that we're used to going through metal detectors. We do it at the state hospital, as mentioned tonight, state capitol, Salem Hospital. They have a singular incident or a singular place that you can go in at this point. Why? Because at OHSU, or I think it was OHSU, a nurse was killed by a gunman. Marion County Courthouse, the airport, a concert venue, stadiums, all of those things are traditionally areas that we're used to going through these. I don't think that coming into a public meeting it's going to be as restrictive or as cumbersome or as terrifying for an individual to come in and go through a process that they're pretty cognizant of going through. So that's my opinion. I'm a big supporter of it. I have been since I got on council. So,
Councillor Tigan.
Thank you. A question for City Attorney. So can you talk through a little bit of the rationale, and whether it's proposed or not, why exempting members of City Council, staff members, city consultants? Why would you decide to exempt those folks, but only essentially do the administrative search for members of public?
I can't speak to elected officials. I'll let you cover that. But as far as staff goes, we have been through background checks. Volunteers to city boards and commissions, and all city volunteers have been subject to background checks. So there's at least some level of prior safety consideration there. So as far as council members go, I feel pretty confident with you, but that's your decision.
So to follow up, the rationale there is that the background check is a proxy for the
Threat
decision
assessment.
of whether someone would bring a weapon into a meeting.
I think that's one factor you can play into it, is that, okay, what is the level of threat from this person? This person works here, they worked here for a number of years, or maybe they've worked here for a month, but they've been through a criminal background check before they got here.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. I understand and appreciate others' viewpoints on this. I, too, struggle with the cost. And I also feel that I know that in the chambers, it was very scary, because there were times I knew somebody sitting right behind me had a gun in their purse. And as the room got more contentious, it was quite uncomfortable. And do I think that person was a threat? It was more the idea of the potential. And so I do feel that for our safety, for staff safety, and for audience's safety, I can understand wanting it, but at the same time, it's a challenge, because it doesn't create that friendly environment that I would want people to feel comfortable coming to. But to Councillor Matthews' point, we are going through them. It's more annoying than anything. I think more that you have to stop and show your purse or whatever. And you also have to do it now at any games or any events. I mean, it's so regular. I think that I'd like a better understanding of the cost, especially with the suggestions, Mr. Atchison, about the mobility of it. Is it something that could be used in other places? I think I'm also concerned about the staffing costs. So even if we do move forward with this, I really do want us to all have a better understanding of the cost, that then is misdirected, that could go somewhere else. So we have to make some hard choices.
Trade-offs, yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you. I am pretty on the fence about whether to allow metal detectors. I think we've had some good testimony along those lines tonight, and I'm not prepared to vote in favor of it at this time. I'm very mindful of how close of an eye we're keeping on our budget. We worked really hard on that budget this year, and we have been told time and time again there's no money left for anything that we want to do. So I have a lot of concerns about using staffing time and equipment costs, and the equipment may or may not be easy to move over to council chambers when we go back. So I have a lot of concerns about metal detectors. I am in favor of an ordinance to prohibit the possession of firearms, and for a variety of reasons. It's not just the safety issues. I know that members of council earlier this year encountered some threats based on how they voted on a controversial matter, and that's what they told us, and I find that's unacceptable. And it's not, people often forget this, accidental discharge is very real. It happens many, many times. I've handled firearms, and the first thing I did was do basic gun safety, but you would be amazed how many people don't have the safety on. And in an enclosed space like this, an accidental discharge from someone fumbling with their purse in the audience or what have you, that can happen. And accidental discharge happens many, many times across this country. There are stats that demonstrate how often that happens. So I would be in favor of banning the possession of firearms. We are within our right to do so, and we've received enough threats against members of this council that I think it's appropriate to do so. We shouldn't have to wait. But in terms of metal detectors, that I'm not prepared to do tonight.
And yeah, Councilor Vang, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this where we deliberate, or are we still asking questions?
I'm deliberating.
Oh, okay. Well, if we're deliberating, then I'll just chime in. But I echo Councilor Nordike's earlier comments about the decorum and public comment rules, especially Rule 8 in suspending public comments for all participants. I think it was rightfully pointed out that there are other ways in the rules already to adequately address an actual disruption. And this just kind of reminds me of back when I'm in grade school and we just have that one troublemaker who it makes a disruption, the teacher tells them to knock it off and they continue to do it. And then the teacher says, well, fine then, nobody gets to do X, Y, and Z. And the whole entire class is just like, dude, what? So it just kind of reminds me of that. And I don't necessarily like that because we're all adults here and we all know and can identify when someone is being actually disruptive and can call them out and have them leave the meeting. So this particular rule in Rule 8, I'm not particularly in support of. And in Rule 15I on profanity, I have a couple of thoughts on this. The first thing that comes to mind is about 10 years ago, a political commentator said pretty famously that facts don't care about your feelings. And I think that is especially true, especially when we are in our council meetings and we're receiving public comment and our constituents are telling us how they feel about a particular issue or a particular topic, and they have to use profanity to kind of get the point across. I think everybody here can kind of know the difference between profanity being used in an unprofessional manner and profanity being used to convey a point or a feeling. I think Councilor Nordike rightfully identified that because I share that same sentiment. And I also I have not really heard of any other jurisdiction or cities being slapped a really big fine from the FCC for having profanity during public comment. That's something that I'm not aware of. And I just think that we as council and as a city can't control how people give public comment. And if they drop the occasional profanity, that's not on the council or the city to regulate. I think the disclaimers that we are already doing at the beginning of council is kind of like, we did our duty. We said that you can't cuss and you did anyway. So I think to me that is sufficient enough. So I, again, am not in support of this as it's written in 15I regarding profanity. So I do think that maybe staff could come back with revised proposals based off of the discussion that council is having tonight on these rules. So those are my thoughts on the public comment and the decorum. In terms of metal detectors and firearms, I think that makes sense, especially the firearms. I do remember receiving some threats late last year, earlier this year, on some votes that I did. And those are pretty scary. And I don't want anybody on this council to ever have to receive those. And if adopting an ordinance to ban firearms, makes it, gives us another tool to address that safety component, and having metal detectors here provides that additional layer of safety, I'm here for it, because I don't want any of my fellow council members or future councilors to have to sit here and think about whether their safety is in danger or not. So those are just my thoughts and my deliberation as I'm listening to everybody's comments and the presentation. So thank you for listening, and yeah, thank you.
Would you like to come back here? Because we're kind of doing the deliberating kind of thing, or at least the discussion. Thank you. Thank you, City Attorney and Deputy City Manager. Linda, Nishioka, Councilor Nishioka, you had your hand up.
Thank you. I will ask this as a question, so it seems more appropriate than just speaking. Did the staff review what other cities in the state have done? As I understand it, Portland considered this, but chose not to. I also read that Eugene has a metal detector and are enforcing some rules. So did staff review what other cities have done?
Councilor Nishioka, not extensively, but I did review Portland City Council's rules regarding, ejecting members of the public, but I didn't do a review of other communities.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Tigan, go ahead.
Yeah, just on the deliberative front, I think in general, the rules changes proposed for Rule 8 make sense to me. I think all of them represent the very outer edge of how we would hope that our meetings would go, including giving the presiding officer the ability to suspend public comment. As our back and forth confirmed, the council could override that. I can sort of see that playing out in terms of, taking a break and then taking a vote to reinstate public comment. I do think that having that ability of a presiding officer makes sense, even if it's rarely used. I agree with others on profanity. I don't think we should be regulating that, and people do their own arguments in justice in a space like this. The new business makes sense to me. And then for the metal detectors and the banning of firearms, I do very much support this. I think that our society is changing. We here in Salem have had a significant mass casualty event in the time of our service together as a council. If you could tell me that the knife that was used to slash 10 people at UGM would show up on that metal detector, then I'd pound my fist yes while I voted for it. These threats are not, they're not, academic. They're part of who we are now. And that's just something we have to face. And so I think in order to create a situation in which people feel comfortable throwing some F-bombs, they need to know that this space is really safe, that it's safe for free speech. It's safe to tell us what you think, and it's safe to learn about your city. I don't want to be a mass casualty victim at a Portland Timbers game. I don't want to be a mass casualty victim at the hospital, but these are all places where it's happened. And so it's difficult, I think, to Dan's point, for decades, the council has considered this. And every time they've considered it, they said, probably not just no, they've said not yet. And I think at what point would we say, okay, we're going to do it? Is it after we have a mass casualty event in Salem? Well, that happened. So I think we should really take a hard look at what the balance there is. And especially the fact that we, as council members, I haven't received those threats, but I know my colleagues have. And I think to support them and to support the others that are coming into these positions, that we should stand for them and stand for this being a safe place of vigorous debate.
Thank you, Councilor Tigan. Anyone else? I just made a few notes. First of all, I am so grateful that we are having this discussion together. It's super important that we gather everybody's viewpoints on these really kind of serious things, right? I am no stranger to a swear word. I know them and I use them. But anything used as a weapon to me is offensive. So that's the way I feel about that. My time with the International Mayors Group through Bloomberg Harvard gave me an opportunity to learn from my peers And the overwhelming feeling amongst a group in discussion about the time period for public comment was that, first of all, it was, you don't get paid to do that job, you know? And then it was, and you stay how long? You know, maybe you could like institute something reasonable where if, you know, 10 people show up, they all get 3 minutes. If, you know, 30 people show up, can't remember the total math on it, but they had it worked out in their own councils that if 60 people show up, then you are limited, just so that this body, who is volunteer currently, can expect to be able to go home and get the job done for the city. So I guess that just seems like something we could reasonably consider, just at least even seeing what it might look like, and then being able to consider that. Councillor Tigan, along with what you've said, so many folks have said to me exactly what you did. Are we going to keep waiting until something happens? And the place that got left out of where we have metal detectors is schools, you know? So it is a thing. I don't want anything bad to happen. And again, we needed to have this discussion together. And I would be really happy if we were to send this to staff to look at all the notes that we've made here tonight and bring back something on these topics for us to consider. Can we just get do we have to take a vote, or can we just get a consensus on something like that?
I think a vote would be appropriate. If you wanted to refer the proposed rules back to staff, we can take the comments under consideration. As the staffer who's been kind of leading this, my take from today's discussion is that probably just table the profanity rule. I think there's a difference of opinion for council regarding allowing the presiding officer to suspend public comment. One thing I would say is that the idea behind that rule was that if it's a large disruption and the whole group of attendees is disrupting the meeting and we've warned them and asked them to cease and it continues, then that would be when a suspension might be appropriate. That's not what the rule says, I get that. That would be something that I would take from this discussion and maybe come back with a refinement to that rule that talks about large, prolonged discussions before a suspension is appropriate. I am not clear where you're at on the 30-minute rule, so some direction on that would be great. And I think there's also a split opinion at council here regarding metal detectors. So I think additional direction or a motion regarding just metal detectors would be helpful from my perspective.
So separate motions then?
I will make a proposal for you, and you're welcome to accept it or not. I would say to send the rule changes back to staff. We will take your comments into consideration and come back at an appropriate time for additional council deliberations. That would be one motion, to refer the rules to staff. A second motion would be to, my recommendation would be to direct staff to proceed with development of a policy to implement metal detectors that we would bring back to a subsequent council meeting where council could vote up or down on it or modify it.
Yeah, Councillor Nishioka.
So I think I took pretty good notes, so I'm ready whenever discussion's over with.
I say go ahead with the motion. If there's something further we can discuss.
I move to refer the rules for staff to review and bring back to council. Is that good enough?
Second.
Motion and a second by Gwynn. Any discussion on that? Yeah, Councillor Matthews.
Just to confirm, this is with the exception of metal detectors.
Yeah,
okay.
That's coming next.
Got it.
And the only thing I might add is just some sort of like proposed framework around time. You know, like just an idea of what maybe we could try just for us to consider. Does that make sense, City Attorney?
Yeah, I've heard a couple different suggestions tonight, and we can provide language on different alternatives or just deleting the rule altogether.
Great. Yeah, Councillor Varney.
Thank you. Actually, Dan just said that. I was just thinking, are we going to just remove the rule or what? And so we'll see. I think the 30-minute rule, we don't need it. I mean, there are going to be times when we're going to go over, et cetera. I mean, that's just the way it works out. But I don't think we need the 30-minute rule as long as we have a good definition that we have the 2 time periods.
Great. Councillor Matthews.
Dan, we currently have a different rule that's time-based, and it's something we always have to do an extension post 10 o'clock. And is that right? I'm not saying it's 10 o'clock. That is correct, right?
Correct. There's a council rule that requires the meetings to end at 10 o'clock, so that's why we vote to suspend the rules from time to time.
So the reason I ask is that in the event that council, because I'm a little concerned about the proposal to remove the rule completely, just because it takes a tool out of our toolbox, but in the event that it was fully removed and council would still have the option at 10 o'clock to not extend the meeting if at that point we just felt like we could not make valid decisions because as one possibility, the public comment has just gone too long and we haven't even got to original business. Would that still be within our purview to do that at 10 o'clock if that 30-minute rule was removed?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else? Councillor Tigan.
I appreciate Councillor Varney's point, and I'd also, for the sake of tonight's schedule, I'm going to support this motion to keep the conversation going, and I like the idea of bringing alternatives back for us to do probably a little vote-a-rama when this comes back.
Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And I do think it's worth saying this. When we are having this conversation about, metal detectors, there's value in that conversation. Obviously, the public can hear us talk about it. But that's a slippery slope because if we're thinking about having metal detectors in one building, then how much more so should we have one at Public Works? So we go down this slippery slope because now you have to have a conversation about the value of life, and I'll put money on it. We don't want to have that conversation yet. So how do we do this? Because if we are saying yes, and I know we're not making decisions tonight, I'm just putting this in the atmosphere that having metal detectors, I'm all for it. Yet at the same time, we have other folks who go to their places of work without that, and I think their life matters just as much. And so how do we have that conversation? Because Madam City Manager is here. We know it ain't in the budget, but the value of life. So we really got to wrestle with this so the community can see us wrestle with this because we don't have an answer. I yield the floor.
So just to confirm that the motion that's on the floor is just for the rules, and then once we vote on this one, then we're going to have another motion on metal detectors.
That's correct. Any further discussion? Councillor Brown, something you said is
Yes, ma'am.
Is that there are many, many places that don't have metal detectors.
Yes, ma'am.
And there are metal detectors at all state buildings, or at least in the Capitol building, let's say. And this body is a body of electeds, and where I don't like to see politics in this space, it does happen, and it seems that might not happen at Public Works. So this feels a little bit different in this space. I would just add that to what you said.
I get it.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Tigan.
Aye.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Matthews.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Brown.
Aye.
Councillor Vang.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. That motion passes. We're moving on to the next motion.
And just to confirm, City Attorney, may I read it as it is? Is that, or do we need to adjust this one? So I move to present a policy, and then we can,
Correct. The motion could state, we move to direct staff to.
okay, I move to have staff present a policy and plan to implement a prohibition on weapons at city council meetings and implement the use of metal detectors at city council meetings.
Second.
Motion and a second by Matthews. Any discussion?
So I'll just go ahead and speak to that again, just to make some clarity. This one staff would bring a proposal to us, and I'm hoping that this will include, I know that we've already seen some of the costs, but I just want to make sure that all of us understand the impacts to the budget, and then we will have conversation when this policy is presented to us. If we want to make any amendments or changes, we could do that. So this is just to get policy to us. Correct?
Yes, that's correct. So if the council adopts this motion, we would work on a policy via an ordinance and bring that back to council for consideration, probably late June, late July-ish.
Any thoughts, questions? The only thought I had is that should metal detectors wait for the new space or be here too? So maybe something around that as well.
If I can speak to that, the committee did discuss potentially having metal detectors at this space. Given the time it's taken to get to this point, I think before we actually got an ordinance adopted and it's in effect and we've done the public outreach and all the other items, it's probably going to be January, February before we're ready to do it, which would put you back in the new space.
Thank you. Councilor Matthews.
I had just a budgetary question about it, and maybe it's better when you bring it back. But I know in the past when we were in City Hall, there was armed officers at our meetings, but there was also a security guard that was always on City Hall. And so when we move back to City Hall, will there still be a security guard on staff during the days because you don't have an armed police officer on site? And could that person just be a DPPST certified employee?
I believe that was cut from the budget last year and was not included in the budget this year, so I wouldn't expect security to be on site at council at City Hall other than for council meetings.
Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. Brian Martin might need to step up, but I will say that I know that with the remodel of the Civic Center, there has been discussion on having the ability for the new chambers to have metal detectors, that in the design it is present for to have them.
So the metal detectors we would likely use are portable. So it's not going to be integrated into the design of the space, but these are items that are fairly easy to move around and set up and take down.
Thank you. I know that there had been discussion at the Civic Center planning, and so maybe that bypassed me and that it wasn't necessary.
Any further discussion? All right. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Tigan.
Yes.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Matthews.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Brown.
Aye.
Councillor Vang. Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. That was an excellent discussion. Thank you. Did you have something? Do we need your vote? Okay. We are moving on to item 3.2B, which was pulled, is now 5B. Go right ahead, Councillor Nishioka.
So this will go to Councilor Varney. She will make the motion and then speak to it since she pulled it.
Thank you.
Okay, it's kind of long. It's almost like it's two here. Anyway, I move that we adopt resolution number 2026-17, approving an application by Willow Mixed Use SPE LLC for tax exemption under the city's multiple unit housing tax incentive program, and direct staff to make a request to boards of other taxing districts to adopt a resolution agreeing with the policy of providing a tax exemption for the project, therefore exempting the multiple family residential portion of the project's full property tax liability.
Second.
We have a motion by Varney and a second by Nordike. Counselor, to your motion.
Thank you very much. Considering what time it is, I'm going to make this more brief. I had more of a longer discussion to go into on this, but I wanted to pull it from the consent agenda because when things like this come to us and the cake is already baked, I really think that this warrants a broader discussion. And I have brought it up in the past with our tax exemptions on properties. I believe that our MUTIP policy really needs to be updated. I don't feel that it serves the needs that it did at one time, especially now that we have Oregon's Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities program, and we have now developed our 14 whatever actions with the housing production strategy. I think it needs some changes. The way this one, the way it's presented to us tonight, my concern is we just saw Measure 120 be defeated greatly. And the timing tonight, looking at giving someone a tax exemption for 10 years when those basically taxes go to pay for city services, et cetera. And I realize with URAs it's different, but generally the taxes, just like we see with public buildings and state buildings, you know, right now we're complaining because they're not paying for city services. So I'm just saying I want us to be careful and take a really close look at when we're doing tax exemptions. And how does it put more of a load on others to provide services? There are just some concerns here that I have about this, so that's why I wanted to talk about it. There are a lot of different things that we could do with the MUTIP, and I don't know if we need to have a work session, if we have plans for a work session to talk about other things. Other cities have done things like using a sliding scale and giving a longer-term exemption based on percentages of affordable housing. Some have put in solar panels or been implemented the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design certification. Some offer 2-year exemptions with an option of extending it up to 10 years. I mean, there are just so many different things we could do, and I think it could be a more effective tool and a better return on our investment, really looking at our housing goals and what we want to do. So tonight, I know this one just says 10 years and go for it, but the thing is, the application was submitted on April 28th, and we have 6 months to make a decision, number one. Number two, we don't have to agree to 10 years. Our MUTIP says up to 10 years. So we could change this. And so I wanted to just get this discussion going. Would you like to extend it? Do you just want to adopt it the way it is? I just think there are really possibilities here to start looking at how we might make this more effective and meet our needs.
Thank you. Councillor Tigan, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, Councillor Varney, and I think that we do, when I read through the materials, we asked folks to take a look at, 14 different things that, public benefits. Some of the ones you mentioned, LEED certification, is one of those benefits, but I think your point is a good one in that we could change what those 14 things are, right? So that they more closely align to what's in the housing production strategy or what's in our climate action plan, those sorts of things. I think the balance there, especially for this one tonight, which I intend to support, is doing it in a way where the developers sort of can do the math ahead of time, so that if they've bought the project and they're going to build the project, that they have at least some certainty about what the city council will do. Because at this point, if we were to greatly reduce the MUTIP on this project, in all likelihood it'd fail. And then that vacant piece of land on High Street would maintain its vacancy, whereas I think the amount of housing that they want to put on a bus line really close to downtown is going to be a great project. But I completely understand your desire to want to reconsider some of those 14 things, and essentially what are the triggers? It's just like, oh, click 10 and that's a nice to have, and then you get a MUTIP, as opposed to something that's a little bit more thought out and essentially transparent ahead of time.
Okay, Councilor Matthews, go ahead.
I was actually glad you pulled this, Councilor Varney, because I had also made the same request. I had concerns about this specific project, mainly because, for the exact same reasons as you, is when we give these tax exemptions, they have their own burden on the city, and the tax exemptions need to also net out the outcome that we're looking for, which is that affordable rate, right? That actual subsidized rate that actually makes sense. But when I'm looking at the numbers here, it looks to me like a one-bedroom unit, the 635 square feet, is still going to be rented at $1,835. A three-bedroom unit for 1,119 square feet is going to be $2,797, and a 390 square foot unit is going to be $1,290. Comparing that to market rate, I wouldn't say that those are aggressively competitive numbers. In truth, those are actually fairly consistent with market rate, it feels like, from my perspective. And so I think for this specific project, I'm unless I hear something different as tonight, I'm leaning against voting yes on this project, because I don't feel that those rental rates actually give that net benefit that we're looking for a 10-year abatement of taxes.
Councilor Brown.
Question, Councilor Varney, or someone that can answer it. So is it common for us to always start at the 10-year mark, or do we start at a 2, 5 other increments? Is it common? I don't know. Oh, Mr. Brown, you come answer that?
Here he comes.
Before Michael addresses that question, I just wanted to clarify that this is essentially a quasi-judicial decision you're making, because they're making an application for this benefit. So you have discretion to approve, deny, or condition the approval, but it's got to be based on the criteria for this. So, and one of the criteria is, does the benefit that the project is receiving correspond to the public benefit that they're offering? So while you have some discretion, it's not completely unbridled. You've got to base your decision on the criteria.
And before you answer, I want to say thank you, Mr. City Attorney, because that's another part of the slippery slope, because it's one thing for us to have this discussion, which I'm all about, but if we have not done this before, see what I'm saying? It's like, did we pick one property where we excused all the others before? I don't know the answer to that, so.
Michael Brown, Manager of Housing Production Programs and Incentives, Community Planning and Development. The answer to your question is, this application and its treatment is consistent with the way past applications have been done. Now this is my first time with MUTIP in front of you. The real estate manager used to do these, but all of the evidence, all of the records that we have for MUTIPs past, the only one that I've seen that had been less than the 10-year exemption is one that was on Commercial Street that was done for 5, and then I think it was eventually extended as well. But right now, everything that you see before you, I mean, I literally copied and pasted and then just put in the facts with this particular application the same way that it was done in the past.
That's good to know. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
If I may, to the question of the timing, I understand the developer did turn this in late April, also expressed that it's kind of critical for his financing to get an answer quickly. So in an effort to serve the development community is why I did not take the full 6 months to evaluate this.
Councillor Varney had her hand up first. Go ahead. Okay, Councillor Nordike, go right ahead.
While we have Mr. Brown at the podium, I want to understand, yes, the rental rates are $1,219 to $227, $2,800 a month, with the exception of a handful of units that are below that. So that there are 3 units that would be constrained at 80% of the area median income. So there would be 3 units that would be at 80% of the AMI. And it's very common for us to see this. They don't give you a number. They tell you it'll be within a certain percentage of the area median income because the AMI is always changing. So that's why you don't see a hard number in case you didn't know that already. My assumption would be if you were hypothetically to reduce the MUTIP, instead of giving them the full 10 years, if you lowered it to 5 years, then at the end of the 5 years, they would no longer have to provide those reduced rent apartments because the tax abatement would no longer be in place. Is that accurate, Mr. Brown?
Yes, ma'am. And I'd just point out that the trigger point for requiring any affordable units is actually a 50-unit development. This one is a 49-unit development, and the developer has voluntarily offered up 3 restricted at 80%.
All right.
Councillor Varney?
I mean, I think it's great that he offered up the 3, that's 6%. I'm thinking if you want to do it, that's why I want us to redo this so there are incentives to provide more affordable housing for a longer period of time. Like you get 5 years if you did 15%, and maybe you'd get the 10 years if you did 25 or 30%. I mean, there are options. I realize we can't do it with this one, but 10 years is still a long period of time. And I wanted to point out, let's see, this is League of Oregon City's 2025 property tax report, and they address these exemptions. And one of the things they say is, while local governments desire economic development, the growth in this category shows an ever-increasing reliance on local governments to provide tax incentives to business, not the state doing it, basically. The state, which depends primarily on income tax revenues, does not always pass these income tax credits back down to the city necessarily. And so we're doing more and more and more of these, and this is something that they have identified, and I wanted to mention that. Also, I looked up South Block Apartments, which is the exemption expires in 2028. It was originally assessed, let's see, back with just the land at $4.6 million. Now the land only is $5.6 million for the assessment, and that's what they're paying property taxes on. But that property sold in 2021 for $55 million. And I'm just thinking, 10 years is a lot of time, and I think we need to think about what that tax exemption actually means, just to bring that up. So I just mentioned this. I don't want to take up everyone's time. I'm not going to be supporting the motion, but I have been trying to get movement on this since I first brought it up in 22, and I'm hoping that we certainly can.
Councillor Tigan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think those are all great points. Councillor Varney, I think the other twist to think about it based on our work session together last week is that it also, imagine when that South Block development comes back onto the tax rolls, the tax increment finance of that will go to that URA and will provide a significant bump in the ability to do additional projects in that area. And I think that also might give us something to consider, because this project is going to take place in the downtown riverfront urban renewal area, which is our most mature and could probably stand from how we talked about the need to build up tax increment early in these URA designations. Downtown riverfront is relatively mature. Now, if we would make the same decision, if we want to benefit from new development in a brand new urban renewal area like North Waterfront, I think that adds kind of a wrinkle to it, because we don't want to wait 10 years for the benefit to start to accrue in the tax increment. So I really appreciate your points. I hope we do continue this conversation, and I think there's a lot of nuance to it too.
Anyone else? Councillor Nishioka.
I will also say, Councillor Varney, I know that you and I have spoken about MUTIPs and the hope that we would have a work session on it, or something where we could really take a hard look at some of the things that could be changed. So I'm hoping that this tonight will, and we see Ms. Dunbury's head shaking, that we will have an opportunity to review that, and to Councillor Tigan's point about how we can weigh it in different situations. And I think that those would be great things for us to discuss. I will be voting for this. I recognize other people's concerns, but at the same time, for this project to move forward, we need to allow it to move forward. It would probably fail if we don't. So, thank you.
Only thing that's coming to my mind is our housing production strategy and how far we are behind, and I would hate to see it delayed. Just my thought. Did you have something to add?
No, I was just going to, thank you, Mayor. I was just going to respond to Councillor Nishioka's comment. I'll work with staff to schedule a work session to have a discussion with the council, to have a discussion on the MUTIP.
And that's the only. Oh, Councillor Nordyke, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So first of all, thank you, Councillor Varney, and I too support the idea of a work session. We have made adjustments to MUTIP over time. The fact that there now is this AMI tie-in, that is a relatively new phenomenon for MUTIP that used to not be a thing. I would note that that's not the only advantages. This was, as they say, a very derelict property. There are enormous benefits to developing this property. It had been raised, it's an underutilized lot, and we absolutely need that housing. I also really appreciate the fact that even though they don't have to, they're installing an elevator, which adds a development cost, but we need more facilities for ADA residents in our area as well. There are extra costs associated with infill, and we want smart infill as a transportation issue to reduce traffic congestion, to encourage people to use our public transit, all of those things. There are a lot of advantages that I see to this facility, but it's not going to be because there are units priced at $500 a unit. That is not the advantage that is offered for this particular project. But we should be proud of the fact that we have a lot of other projects that are affordable. I would like to see, as part of a work session, we hear this from developers all the time. Without this city money, this project will not pencil out. We hear that assurance made all the time. I want to see the data to back it up. I understand the desire to want to give tax breaks in order to make more housing affordable in our city. Understanding what that looks like now with today's interest rates, with today's labor costs and material costs, the impact of tariffs. There's so many different external factors that are driving up the cost of housing, and it makes it even more difficult and more expensive to build housing at any price point, much more so at an affordable rate. So I'm all in favor of us having a work session, but we can't pull the rug out from this particular applicant under our quasi-judicial rules. We can't start considering what a MUTIP might be. We can't make a decision legally based on what we would like it to be. We have to make it based on the criteria that are in front of us legally. So I will be supporting the resolution, but I'm also supporting your effort for calling this out and recognizing the need to update our MUTIP as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Nordyke. Before you comment, Councillor Varney, we need to add time to the clock. So, Councillor Nishioka, could I have a motion, please?
I move that we extend to 10:15.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Matthews. Before you go ahead, Councillor Varney, I just want to be sure, Councillor Nordyke, what you said, I agree. Exactly. This is what we need to do, and we do need to look at it, and I'm so glad you brought it up in this environment, Councillor Varney, so we can make sure it happens. We have to vote. We have to vote. Didn't we do a thumbs up?
Vote on the time.
So sorry. I got all excited there. All in favor of extending the time to 10:15? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Going back to discussion, Councilor Varney, go right ahead.
Thank you. I just had a couple of quick questions. One was, well, in mentioning the quasi-judicial thing, doesn't our MUTIP say up to 10 years? So does that mean that it has to be 10 years?
So again, what I would say is any decision you make has got to be based on the criteria. So if you're going to apply the criteria to say that the public benefit from this development doesn't equate to a 10-year exemption, you could potentially approve a lower number of years based on that. Again, you know, based on past practice and past council approvals, the applicant applied for a 10 years, but I think with that expectation, not that you're mandated to approve what they applied for.
Go right ahead.
Okay, and how does the tax exemption apply to bonds and levies?
The tax exemption that you're voting on is just simply for the city. For the applicant to get a complete exemption, they have to garner at least 51% of the taxed value. So for instance, the easiest way to do that is go to the school district and have the school district also give the exemption, and then it would exempt everything.
My understanding is it would also, it exempts the property from that ad valorem tax, which would include bonds and levies as well. So, but it's district by district. So this is, what council is approving is the exemption from the city's property tax. And then if 51% of the other taxing jurisdictions approve it, then they're completely exempt on their property tax for that 10-year period.
All right. If nothing further, we've had a motion and a second. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Matthews.
Nay.
Councilor Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Councilor Vang.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Nay.
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
And Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. We're moving on to information reports. I'll read through these. If you have anything to add or ask about, don't hesitate to stop me. Our first information report is item 6A. It's a status report on engagement and outreach for drug prevention, treatment, and enforcement in Salem. I would just like to add to this a little bit and say that I've been hearing a lot about this prevent, treat, and enforce, and the connections that staff have been making around this initiative, the conversations happening across our community. To me, this is exactly what can happen, what is possible when we come together on these issues. So, item 6B, purchases approved administratively from April 1st, 2026 through April 30th, 2026. Okay, moving on to item 7. We have no ordinances, no first reading, no second reading, and we're on to public comment. We have 2 people signed up for public comment.
Mayor, before you get to that, if I just wanted to correct
Yes, sir.
something I misstated. Josh corrected me that for the MUTIP exemption, it does not apply to bonds and local option levies. So the property owner would still need to pay tax on those.
Thank you for clarifying. All right, we have Debbie Lockhart and Kathleen Treppa. Please come forward. Make sure you hit the button so the microphone comes on. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Announce your name, your ward, or your address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Debbie Lockhart, and I'm in Ward 5. Excuse me. You've already heard, and I'm a member of the Salem Library Advisory Board. And you've already heard a little bit about the library, but I came to toot the library's horn because I think you have the most wonderful library here in Salem, and I want to tell you about it. Not only can you check out books, magazines, DVDs, and CDs, there are programs available all the time, too. There's one coming up that's all about the the bald eagles that live in the area. You can also check out ebooks. You don't have to go to Amazon and buy ebooks. You can rent them, you can buy them, or you can just check them out from the library. They can go onto your iPad or your Kindle. And they have another thing called cultural passes. Those are passes that you check out for a week, and you can take your entire family for free to museums and cultural venues in the area. And this is the best part of all. I just love this part. We have a library of things. You can borrow air purifiers, power washers, toolkits, sewing machines, cake pans, puzzles, electric games, all kinds of stuff. But you know, the cake pans are what got me, because I remember all the times when my kids were growing up, I had to go buy a Buzz Lightyear pan that I used one time. You can borrow those from the library now. It's just wonderful. Anyway, I think you have a wonderful library, and I'm just excited to be a part of it, and I hope it continues on forever. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I wish you'd come every meeting. That's awesome. Kathleen Treppa.
Yes, thank you very much, Kathleen Treppa. And I just wanted to share that I volunteered at the mobile food pantry again today. It's the second and fourth Tuesday of every month at the Methodist Church on Silverton Road. And as I shared last time, instead of the full pallet, we had a half a pallet. Well, this time we had a quarter pallet. And I have to tell you, it was absolutely shocking. So we received rice and beans. We had some canned beans. We had no canned vegetables. We did have one case of tomato sauce. We had 8 jugs of grape juice, 8 cartons of almond milk, and a bunch of little raisin snack packs. That's what we got delivered from the food chair. Mano Mano does have a refrigerated truck, so they are able to pick up refrigerated goods directly from the food chair. And this time they had a full pallet. We had a lot of day-old bread and rolls, a lot of eggs, that's good, frozen meat, and a couple cases of jalapeno peppers, and a case of fresh cantaloupes, and a bunch of tortilla chips. So the federal cuts to social funding have finally hit. They are dramatic. We had a lot of new people today, including an 80-year-old gentleman who showed up looking for food. I passed one person on a bike who was hauling 2 bags of food, trying to get home. And while people may think that I don't support law enforcement, I will say that adding more police officers will not prevent or reduce crime, and it doesn't feed people. And as people get more desperate, they're going to do desperate things in order to put food on the table and in order to keep a roof over their heads. And so my fear is that if things get economically worse, and I'm a worst-case planner, I think things will get worse, and I think you will see homelessness rise, and I do think you're going to see property crimes go up because these federal funding cuts hurt, and they are now directly impacting our neighbors and our community members. So if the cost of 4 more police officers, 6 more police officers, 2 more police officers, imagine how many families we could feed with that money, how much direct assistance we could put back into the community to make our local families a little less desperate. And the community benefits that we get by investing directly into the community will come back to us in the way of hopefully less nuisance, because we have fewer desperate people out there who are trying to survive. It's scary out there, and it's only going to get scarier for those folks. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. If no one has anything further, we're adjourned.